Chapter 1193. At this moment, everyone was dumbfounded. On the Shuemu Sky's side, the creatures who thought Han Fei was not strong just now all widened their eyes. What was this? Someone wondered, if he could use such a terrifying finger at the beginning, why did he make a 1,000-meter-long giant finger? A bug sighed. Is it because it looks good? As soon as this remark came out, all the creatures were dumbfounded. It seemed that this was the only explanation. Otherwise, it didn't make sense. Of course, if it was the sea demons, it would be a different story. Immediately, someone yelled, Han Fei of the human clan, you're so despicable. Let go of our experts and have a fair fight. Huh? Let them go. Han Fei was surprised, glanced at the half-mermaid who spoke, and then at Yu Wangyu who seemed to be stunned by his attack, and said leisurely, let them go? Of course. I don't believe that such a heavenly talent is not worth 100,000 spiritual fruits. Give me the money and let them go. The sea demons, a bug laughed. Yes, I'll let him go for 100,000 spiritual fruits. Someone yelled, you have to add ultra-quality divine weapons. A Tao-seeking state demon snorted. You're Han Fei, right? Don't make a mistake. Puff. As soon as the Tao-seeking state demon said that, Snowmorn was swung out. Under the surprised gaze of countless people, Han Fei cut Yu Wangyu into two halves. Han Fei pointed his sword at the big demon and scolded, you want me to let them go without giving you money? I'll kill them. Suddenly, the bug shouted, hey, wait a little longer. They'll really give you money. Han Fei glanced back. Oh, really? That's a pity. Don't panic. Let me catch another person. In the distance, a group of peak-level sea spirits were eyeing Han Fei covetously, but they didn't rush to fight him. Yu Wangyu's original purpose was to test Han Fei's strength. However, it seemed that Han Fei's strength hadn't been tested, but Han Fei's bragging. At this moment, Han Fei's face was all dark and he was exasperated. Why? Didn't they say that the heavenly talents of the royal city are very strong? Why isn't there anyone who can fight? While talking, Han Fei took out Yu Wangyu's sea-swallowing seashell. Then, he stuffed it in to forge the universe. Han Fei pointed at the hundreds of powerhouses of the Sea clan opposite him. His eyes wandered and finally fell on several groups of peak-level law enforcers. If there was no accident, it was very likely that this group of people wanted to ambush him or the powerhouses who wanted to undergo the tribulation together with him. Faced with such a situation, Han Fei felt that he should kill these people first. It was fine to undergo the tribulation tomorrow. On the Sea clan's side, Han Fei heard someone speaking in the sea demon language, we haven't tested Han Fei's strength yet. The finger just now doesn't seem to be his own power. Should we test him again? Someone responded, it's best to wound or even kill Han Fei before the tribulation. However, this person was definitely not weak. He couldn't fight him alone, so he had to think of a way to have him challenge a group battle. Or, let the Tao-seeking realm powerhouses take action and forcefully suppress it. A woman transmitted her voice. Let me fight him first. I'm going to transcend the tribulation on this trip. If I'm no match for him, I'll transcend the tribulation during the battle and kill him directly. Han Fei's eyes suddenly flashed. Do you think I can't understand you in the sea demon language? I used to live in the 10,000 Demon Valley. Han Fei shouted, I heard that the law enforcers on the opposite side are all from the royal city. Today, I, Han Fei, want to be defeated. Let's fight the powerhouses of the same realm together. Yu Chen. The Insect King, the creatures of the various races. A bug buzzed and shouted, Han Fei, don't underestimate these people. They are really strong. Among all these people, the only one who had fought Han Fei head-on was Yu Chen. He knew how terrifying Han Fei was when he went all out. Yu Chen said, don't be careless. The heavenly talents of the royal city are not that weak. The opponent is a mermaid clan powerhouse, and his bloodline and heritage are not weak. Han Fei smiled. Got it. And in the eyes of the Sea Clan, Han Fei's words and deeds were almost boundless. They were all heavenly talents. Who was convinced? Do you want to challenge us all? A female half-mermaid came riding a blue shark, holding two conical spears in her hands. This weapon was very rare. The tip of the spear was half a meter long, slender and smooth. The woman shouted, "Baying of the White Shell Royal City, peak-level sea spirit. Han Fei, do you think you're invincible just because you defeated Yu Wang Yu by luck?" Han Fei pretended to frown. Isn't this the woman who was going to kill me with the tribulation in the battle? However, Han Fei didn't panic at all. Wasn't this an opportunity for him? Since the other party had already made a plan, he might as well take advantage of the situation and kill her first. Han Fei raised his head and said contemptuously, "Just you? Who gave you the confidence to challenge me alone?" With that said, Han Fei pointed at the Sea Clan powerhouse in the distance. "I gave you a chance, but you couldn't even seize it. You're really a bunch of useless people. You're as timid as a crab. You think you're the top heavenly talents of the royal city?" However, he heard someone shout, arrogant and conceited. Beiying once killed an explorer and killed a heavenly talent of the insect clan 7 times in the Sea of Flames. How dare you criticize her? A insect powerhouse immediately shouted angrily, "Nonsense. How can a heavenly talent of the insect clan be defeated?" A large group of insect clan powerhouses was furious. 7 battles and 7 kills. That's a slap in the face. However, some insects' eyes flickered. This woman is indeed not to be underestimated. The shark under her feet is called a thunderfire blue shark. It can swallow clouds and summon thunder and lightning. It's quite domineering. Han Fei didn't care at all and stepped out. "Since no one wants to fight me, I can only kill you first." In the blink of an eye, Han Fei moved like a flash of lightning. In less than 0.01 seconds, he had already used the draw technique to attack the wave that Beiying had just stood on. Bam! However, a cloud of blue mist spread out, and within a radius of 3,000 meters, the mist was rising. Beiying's figure appeared in all directions, in the air, on the water, at the bottom of the sea, and next to Han Fei's ears. Beiying giggled. "Ha! I know you're fast, so I was fake from the beginning. Now that you've entered my blue lightning illusion, let's see how you can get out." Boom! All of a sudden, a bolt of lightning struck straight at Han Fei's head. Outside, everyone saw that on the sea, a huge round cover of smoke appeared, covering more than 3,000 meters. Someone said solemnly, "It's the power of a domain. This woman has not only mastered an illusion domain, but also a lightning technique." Crack! Crack! Ice blue lightning and fire burst out in this illusion domain. The sound rumbled, violent and incessant. Every time the lightning rumbled, the eyelids of many insect clan powerhouses twitched wildly. The heavenly talents of the insect clan were most afraid of tribulation. In their view, no one who could master the power of lightning was weak. However, in the blue mist, when Han Fei felt the first bolt of so-called lightning, he almost laughed out loud. "Is this lightning? Are you out of your mind? If this could be counted as lightning, he could sit in the lightning and strike him for a day and a night without running away." Of course, on the surface, Han Fei was attacking in all directions violently with golden fist marks. When Han Fei shattered the void and blocked the sea, the eyes of Shui Mutian and the sea demons flickered. Everyone was wondering why the battle was so fierce. After all, it was the domain ability of a peak-level sea spirit and the talent ability of a thunderfire blue shark. Even an explorer couldn't see through it. Roar, roar, Han Fei was roaring, and his body cracked. He seemed to be struggling to resist this hellish bombardment of lightning and fire. And among the infinite clones, Beiying held 2 spears and broke through the void. The sky was full of spear shadows, making it difficult for people to distinguish them. However, as soon as Beiying made this move, she suddenly saw strange patterns spreading under Han Fei's feet, who was bathed in lightning and fire. After setting up a breath-concealing array and a concealment array, Han Fei raised his head and smiled. Have you had enough fun? If you have, it's my turn. Hiss. How is this possible? Beiying was still escaping among the clones, but she suddenly found that she couldn't fuse with any of them. Han Fei smiled contemptuously. In front of me, you want to control a clone with a bit of your soul? Are you dreaming? Bam! 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 Hundreds of clones were shattered in an instant, and Han Fei's figure had disappeared in place. Roar! It sounded like a dragon's roar. With a deafening roar, the blue mist collapsed. Everyone saw that half of Beiying's body was cut off. Only half of his body was left, and he burned his blood to escape. In an instant, a large number of heavenly talents of the insect clan roared, "Good job! Ha ha ha, a heavenly talent of the royal city? You can't even withstand a single blow. No wonder he's a top heavenly talent of the Shuemu heaven." On the other side, many people's faces turned cold, and someone said solemnly, "Not good, Han Fei's strength." Han Fei raised his saber and stood in front of Beiying. "Do you think you can run away?" Han Fei wasn't in a hurry. He thought to himself, "Didn't you fucking say you want to transcend the tribulation in battle? Damn you, hurry up and cross." Beiying gritted his teeth, and in the void, a thunderfire shark swooped over. Taking this opportunity, Beiying looked up at the sky and roared. At that moment, Han Fei could feel that Beiying was crazily increasing his strength. However, Han Fei had seen this kind of situation many times in the reincarnation cycle. Beiying was so seriously injured that it was impossible for him to transcend the tribulation. Therefore, he tried to use this temporary strength to help him fight again. Rumble. Black clouds swept, thunder and fire suddenly appeared, and electric arcs began to spread in the sky. Someone roared, "Not good, Han Fei, this person is transcending the tribulation. Kill him quickly." Several explorers shouted in a low voice, "This is a way to perish together with the enemy. Han Fei, come out." Han Fei tore the thunderfire blue shark apart with his hands, and blood splashed in the sky. Covered in blood, Han Fei grinned hideously and pointed at the sky. "It's not my own heavenly tribulation. What can a minor tribulation of others do to me?" Everyone was speechless. "Why the fuck are you still pretending at a time like this?" Beiying dragged half of his body and rushed over, shouting coldly, "Let's die together." Han Fei smiled slightly, glanced at him indifferently, and punched out. The sacrificing punch completely broke out, and Beiying couldn't resist it at all. With just one punch, Beiying was crushed into nothing. However, although Beiying was dead, the lightning didn't stop. Gotcha, first update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1194. Crack. In the exclamations, a blue arc of lightning fell from the sky. Han Fei stood on the surface of the sea as if he didn't feel it, letting the lightning hit him. At that moment, on Han Fei's arms, in his eyes, and all over his body, electric arcs flashed. Who? Whether it was Shui Mutian's side or the sea demon's side, they all heard the sound of heavy breathing in the field. Someone exclaimed, "Hiss. Is he swallowing the power of the heavenly tribulation?" A bug exclaimed, "Oh my god, can heavenly tribulations be swallowed?" A big bird was horrified. "He's crazy. He's a lunatic." On the other hand, the sea demons all looked solemn. Sure enough, Han Fei's reputation was well deserved. No one who could fight 100 enemies alone was weak. Although Han Fei's performance was too flashy, he was still a strong expert. In Han Fei's heart, the old turtle's voice sounded, "The so-called lightning is just a test of cultivation." Since it is a test, of course, there are benefits, that is, lightning itself is the purest kind of energy. It's a pity that the lightning you snatched is too weak. If you are strong enough in the future, you may be able to snatch the real supreme lightning. That lightning can be as powerful as 100 years of body tempering. Han Fei sneered in his heart. Then we'll talk about it in the future. Boom, another thick lightning bolt fell. With a crack, Han Fei's body was suddenly covered with cracks, and pale golden blood flowed out. Who Han Fei was still swallowing the power of the lightning crazily. At this moment, electric arcs were crisscrossing in his limbs, flesh, and bones. Han Fei didn't care at all. He pointed at the sea demon's heavenly talent and shouted in astonishment, "What can a mere heavenly tribulation do to me? Who dares to come in and fight me again?" Boom! Another lightning bolt fell straight, and Han Fei was so shocked that he almost sat on the surface of the sea. However, in the lightning pillar 7 or 8 meters thick, Han Fei bent over and cackled creepily. So, this is how it feels to pass a tribulation. Is this the heavenly tribulation? Everyone, in the void, the corner of Wushang Shue's mouth twitched. I really want to slap him. Jing said in surprise, What's going on? He actually transcended someone else's tribulation. Does this count as a tribulation? The Worm King's voice rang out, of course it doesn't count. He didn't transcend someone else's heavenly tribulation, he forcefully swallowed someone else's heavenly tribulation. This child has cultivated an extremely domineering body tempering technique, and he is merely using it to temper his body. Jinger. While tens of thousands of living beings were dumbfounded, high up in the 9 heavens, in the Waterwood Fairy Palace, the Life Queen looked at the heavenly void mirror and murmured, War Physique, Beast King Art, Heavenly Ethereal Godly Walking Art. When did the Yin-Yang Heaven have such a fortuitous encounter? The old tortoise had just reminded him that heavenly tribulation was also a kind of power. Since he walked the path of body refining, he would not be afraid of heavenly tribulation. Speaking of which, this was indeed the first time that Han Fei had undergone a lightning tribulation. This was the tribulation of ordinary people. However, Bei Ying's third thunderbolt was indeed quite powerful. Han Fei's body went limp, and in an instant, hundreds of cracks appeared on his body, causing him to bleed. However, the war physique was running faster. Han Fei didn't feel that his physique was stronger. Instead, he felt that it would be best if he could push both the war physique and the indestructible body to a new height in one go. At this moment, Han Fei felt that the power in his body had swelled to the point where there was nowhere to vent it. His whole body was red and dripping with blood. Han Fei didn't sit cross-legged but stood on the sea, panting violently. Every breath he took was like a thunderclap, and his blood surged. On the sea demon's side, someone shouted in a low voice, "Not good, this person is a pure body refining cultivator. He's using Bei Ying's heavenly tribulation to cultivate, which means that he hasn't reached the peak of the law enforcer realm. Hurry up and stop him." Ho! The Sea Clan Venerable's heart did a flip, and he looked at a group of peak-level sea spirits. These people had been arranged in advance, intending to injure Han Fei before Han Fei's heavenly tribulation. At this moment, these people felt a chill in their hearts. They looked at each other and stepped out together. A half-mermaid shouted, "Han Fei, don't you want to fight? Then let's fight." A shrimp soldier screamed, "Kill." A 100-meter-long flood dragon roared, "Human, do you dare to fight?" At this time, on the side of the Waterwood sky, the creatures had just realized what was going on. Han Fei had just endured someone else's heavenly tribulation, and now 7 peak-level sea spirits appeared. This was too much. A winged insect stood up. "Sea Clan bastard, do you dare to fight?" A giant green gull set off tornadoes. "If you have the guts, come and fight." Ha ha ha! Suddenly, above the sea, the surging blood caused by Han Fei's breathing began to gradually calm down. Han Fei grinned. "Didn't you want to stop me from transcending the tribulation? Today, I'll give you a chance. I don't refuse anyone in the same realm as me. You can come at me together." In an instant, countless people's faces changed. There were really heavenly talents here. On the side of the Sea Clan, there were still some peak-level sea spirits who were eager to take action, but they were forcibly suppressed. A powerhouse of the Sea Clan shook his head. "Don't worry. No matter what path he takes, he can't survive the tribulation today. Huh. 7 peak-level sea spirits attacked at the same time. The giant flood dragon's huge tail slapped, and the law of gravity condensed on its tail. On the spear light of a shrimp soldier, bright red blossomed, and a strange power stimulated the blood in Han Fei's body, trying to devour Han Fei's vitality. A half-mermaid held a blue ball in its hand. When the blue ball bloomed, Han Fei was slightly shocked. Is this the bone transformation spiritual lamp? That kind of weird power that could melt blood and bones. Han Fei twisted his body and instantly avoided the illumination of the bone transformation spiritual lamp. However, even so, a small part of the layer of skin on his body was shown off. At the moment Han Fei flashed away, a layer of frost covered thousands of meters. Han Fei felt that his soul was slightly stagnant. This frost seemed to have the power to freeze the soul. At this moment, a giant tail swung at him, and a spear stabbed at him. Han Fei grinned. Is this all you've got? Suddenly, Han Fei stepped into the void and blasted out a sacrificing punch. Whether it was the giant tail or the spear mark, everything that the fist passed through was crushed to pieces. Water luster. Fire seed. Chirp. With a clear cry of a phoenix, a layer of ice spread 3,000 meters in the void. The frost just now was frozen by the more solid ice. Hum. A sea of fire burned the sky, and the surrounding temperature soared by more than 1,000 degrees in an instant. The space was burned and twisted, and a massive amount of white mist was burned out of the sea. It could be clearly seen that in the void ice mist, a sea cucumber was burned out, and its body was twisting at this moment. Puff! In everyone's astonished gaze, a flaming giant mouth opened, chewed the void, and directly swallowed the sea cucumber. The 7 heavenly talents of the Sea Demon King City had just launched an attack, and one of them had already died. Moreover, the way he died was so weird that both Shui Mutian and the sea demons were a little horrified. What kind of method was this? Light weights. Suddenly, in the sky, a strange sound reverberated, ethereal, like the sound of an immortal. However, the serpent roared, spewed ink-colored venom, tore the sky with its sharp teeth, and whipped at Han Fei with its tail like a metal chain. Someone shouted, "Not good, close your perception." That sound is weird. Han Fei grinned. You only know now. Don't you think it's too late? Han Fei turned around and was already standing in front of the big serpent's head. As he clasped his hands, with a swish, the 100-meter-long body of the big serpent was torn in half by Han Fei. For a time, blood rained down from the sky. Han Fei was like a butcher walking out of a slaughterhouse. He had learned this from the Tiger King. The Tiger King called it momentum. When the 9 sounds vibrated, the shrimp soldier roared and used his shrimp spear as a spear, Sky Sting forbidden technique. Facing this spear, Han Fei held the blood-drinking knife in his hand, and with a swish, the knife light bloomed a kilometer in the void. Huh! Immediately afterward, the phantoms of hundreds of beasts stomped in the void. Only Dao-seeking level demons could resist the roar of the 100 beasts' soul-suppressing roar. The shrimp soldier froze in mid-air as if he was dumbfounded. Han Fei unhurriedly pierced it with his knife, injected spiritual energy into its body, and suddenly exploded. In just one round, 3 of the 7 heavenly talents of the Sea Demon King City had died. It wasn't until this moment that the creatures of the Waterwood Heavenly Clan marveled at Han Fei's strength. A powerhouse of the Sky Clan exclaimed, "What kind of creature is that from the Sky Clan? How can it freeze souls?" A Bug Clan creature asked in surprise, "Where did that fireball come from? Is it an alien fire from the Sea of Flames?" Water luster and the fire spark hovered out like 2 streaks of red and blue light, besieging the half-mermaid who could control the bone transformation spiritual lamp. How could the so-called heavenly talents of the royal city compare to a legendary creature in the same realm? The fire spark shook, and the 10-kilometer sea area turned crimson. Water luster's real talent was water, not ice. At this moment, the seawater rose and the cage was locked. Everyone including Han Fei was surprised to find that water luster and the fire spark had disappeared, only turning into two lights. Water and fire, red and blue light enveloped the half-mermaid. The half-mermaid attacked in panic, but it was useless. In the perception of the experts, they saw that the half-mermaid's body quickly dried up. It wasn't old, but dry. The water in its body seemed to be drained, and it became like a mummy. It was the first time that Han Fei had seen the cooperation of water luster and the fire spark. They were so terrifying that they drained the half-mermaid's body. Of course, Han Fei also knew that there were 3 more people. They had retreated as soon as the 100 Beasts' soul-suppressing roar appeared. Perhaps knowing that Han Fei was extraordinary, the 3 of them attacked again in a triangular formation, surrounding Han Fei and triggering the heavenly tribulation at the same time. At that moment, the 3 of them looked at each other, and their strength skyrocketed. Someone roared, "Han Fei, try to swallow one of our heavenly tribulations." Second. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1195. Perhaps the Sea Clan had already planned this, so the 3 of them didn't plan to attack Han Fei at first. And for the sake of Han Fei, who was too pretentious and intended to sweep his opponents again and again, he didn't win with speed, so he gave the 3 of them a chance. Of course, it was impossible to say that he didn't see it. He just wanted to see what the 3 of them were up to. However, he hadn't expected that the 3 of them would actually use the heavenly tribulation as a method of attack just like baying. Han Fei immediately sneered. The so-called heavenly talents of the capital only have these tricks up their sleeves. You want to kill me with your tribulation? However, in Han Fei's mind, Wusheng Shui said to him via voice transmission, "Why aren't you running? This is the heavenly tribulation of 3 people. Do you really think you're invincible?" Humph. In the void, a voice berated, "Wusheng Shui, this kid wants to fight. Why are you interrupting?" Although all this happened very quickly, Wusheng Shui and the others thought that Han Fei had enough time to escape, so they didn't remind him. However, Han Fei didn't intend to escape at all. At this moment, an explorer shouted, "Han Fei, run away. The 3 tribulations are overlapping. These people aren't Monarch City's geniuses at all. They're just here to die." Someone shouted, "Han Fei, run. The power of the 3 tribulations can't be underestimated. If you're not careful, you'll be annihilated." A sea creature shouted, "Han Fei, aren't you using the lightning tribulation to temper your body? If you have the ability, don't be a coward. Now that you're scared, none of the elites from the White Shell Royal City think highly of you." A half-mermaid sneered. "Humph, the top heavenly talent of the Waterwood Heaven? In my opinion, there's an 80% chance that he's risking serious injuries to escape." A bug buzzed, "Han Fei, don't listen to them. You can't survive this disaster." Buzz buzz buzz, for a time, everyone was talking at the same time. Thunder rumbled in the sky, waves stacked up, vortexes appeared, and arcs of electricity crackled. In the midst of the mockery and anxiety, Han Fei suddenly grinned. The tribulation is the power of heaven. One more person is bound to cause accidents. Since you've pulled me in, you've already achieved your goal. Since you're going to die sooner or later, I'll send you off first. Buzz buzz buzz. Han Fei's speed was comparable to that of an advanced explorer. In a situation where the 3 of them could not dodge, the void lines forcibly seized their divine souls. Han Fei grinned coldly. "Let me borrow your vitality." When the thunder tribulation was about to condense, when the other party revealed his intentions, Han Fei had already taken action. The 6th level of void fishing was originally known as the luck stealing art, but after deduction, it was named the heaven stealing art. At present, the most direct effect that Han Fei could use was to steal the vitality of others. Boom! The 3 men's expressions immediately turned unpleasant. The center of the crab's shell began to turn black for some reason. A venerable was surprised. "Hey!" The death aura on their bodies suddenly became denser. Hiss! Their life force is rapidly disappearing. Boom! Rumble! 4 bolts of lightning crashed down. It was as if the heavenly tribulation had sensed that there were living beings resisting the lightning tribulation together with it. Therefore, when the first lightning bolt struck, the tribulation clouds of the heavenly tribulation became denser. Ka ka ka. Han Fei trembled, and more than 100 cracks appeared on his body. However, these cracks recovered in an instant. Someone was horrified. Han Fei is taking other people's vitality by force. Wu Shangshui frowned. It's not the law of time. He's really just robbing. Jing said in surprise, taking other people's vitality by force? Is this a demonic technique? Wu Shangshui shook his head slightly. I don't think so. Otherwise, how could Her Majesty not know about it? On the sea demon's side, a venerable had already roared, he's indeed a demon. No wonder he's a monster. It turns out that he has fallen into the demonic Tao and is taking vitality by force. Jing shouted, stinky prawn, you shut up. Whether Han Fei is a righteous or evil person is our business. It has nothing to do with your Baibei royal city. Having said that, the creatures of the water wood heaven felt a little weird. Has Han Fei really become a demon? The insect king said in a low voice, whether he is a demon or not, we'll know when Han Fei transcends the tribulation. If he really becomes a demon, the heavenly Tao will not tolerate him and will strike him to death. Ordinary people only had 3 heavenly tribulations, which were often called minor heavenly tribulations. As the old turtle in his body said, the minor heavenly tribulations were very weak and could pass in a nap. However, for ordinary people, this was the most dangerous tribulation they had ever faced in their cultivation. Generally speaking, ordinary people could survive at least 1 lightning bolt, but after being sucked by Han Fei, rumble. When the second lightning bolt fell, he saw the vitality of the 2 people being destroyed and their bodies collapsing. The other big crab's shell was completely broken, but it was not dead yet. And Han Fei's body was cracked like a porcelain doll. He sat cross-legged and activated the indestructible body. Before the third lightning bolt fell, the crab's soul collapsed with a crack. It was sucked to death by Han Fei. However, although this crab had died, the heavenly tribulation was still there. The vitality of the 3 people had been devoured by Han Fei. Who else would the heavenly tribulation look for but Han Fei? Boom! The third lightning bolt fell, and Han Fei was badly mutilated. The people of the water wood heaven were horrified, and the sea demons were overjoyed. Boom! When the 4th lightning bolt fell, someone exclaimed, why are there still lightning bolts? Aren't the 3 lightning bolts gone? Someone sneered. Are you stupid? The vitality of those 3 guys was devoured by Han Fei alone. So, to a certain extent, none of these 3 guys are dead. Isn't it 9 lightning bolts when the 3 of them are superimposed? Someone was stunned. You can do that? In the blue lightning, half of Han Fei's body was scorched black, but everyone could see that his muscles were wriggling and recovering at a terrifying speed. Jing said with some disdain, the vitality he swallowed can only help him resist 2 more lightning bolts at most. He has to rely on himself for more. Wu Shangshui glanced at Jing. Aren't you very optimistic about him? Don't forget that this is someone else's tribulation, not his own. So, this kind of heavenly tribulation can't hurt him. Whoosh! Whoosh! Han Fei swallowed the power of lightning and the electric arcs in the air into his stomach. Han Fei could feel that the indestructible body and the war body were almost reaching the bottleneck. However, this energy was not enough. As soon as it entered his body, it was ground into unknown elements by the indestructible body. If it weren't for the heavenly tribulation, Han Fei would have used the energy fruit. Boom! Boom! Under countless gazes, Han Fei's flesh and blood were melting, burning, peeling, and growing. Whether on the Shuemu heaven's side or on the sea demon's side, countless people were shocked. This was the first time they had seen someone cultivate by swallowing a heavenly tribulation. Besides, Han Fei's body-tempering method was too terrifying. He didn't take his life seriously at all. Of course, the price of this cultivation method was too high. Someone frowned. This cultivation method will seriously injure him first, won't it? A Tao-seeking state demon said, although this kid is using the heavenly tribulation to temper his body, the heavenly tribulation is not so easy to resist. His vitality is fluctuating, and his flesh and blood have melted several times. Even if he survives this tribulation, he will definitely be seriously injured. Boom! When the last thick lightning bolt hit Han Fei, the blue lightning let out a creepy but terrifying sound. Han Fei grinned. Is there anyone else who wants to fight? When the lightning dissipated, a scorched figure was sitting cross-legged on the sea, his chest and abdomen bulging, breathing like a tide. Not only was the surrounding energy and spiritual energy constantly being swallowed, but Han Fei was also full of vitality. Huh? Where did he get such a strong vitality? Someone was puzzled. Logically speaking, even if the vitality of the three people was completely deprived, they wouldn't be able to support Han Fei to survive the 9 bolts of lightning. However, not only did Han Fei survive, but he even had vitality left. Jing, and Wushang Shui looked at each other. Did Han Fei use the spring of life? Only in this way could it be explained. A drop of the spring of life was enough for Han Fei to survive the 9 bolts of lightning. Kacha! When Han Fei's scorched flesh collapsed, the new flesh was still full of cracks. At this moment, Han Fei's aura was flickering. Is there anyone else who wants to fight? I've given you a chance. This is the best time to kill me. If you miss this chance, I'll be the one hunting you. The mermaid who was the first to clamor stopped talking at this moment. She was a heavenly talent, but it didn't mean that she didn't know what to do. At this moment, Han Fei's killing intent was at its peak. Some Tao-seeking state demons seemed to have noticed this. Although Han Fei was full of cracks, he had swallowed more than a dozen bolts of lightning. If he could die easily, he wouldn't have clamored. A Tao-seeking state demon shouted, "Don't worry about him. Although he is seriously injured, we don't know how strong he is. In this case, let's suppress him and force him to go through the tribulation." Beep, beep, beep. The conch sounded, and a sea demon shouted, "Let's go." On the side of the Waterwood Heaven, the Sky Clan immediately ran around, screaming, "Everyone, prepare for battle." A big insect from the Waterwood Heaven shouted, "The tribulation battle begins." Han Fei's heart did a flip. Shu Xiaoman had told him about the tribulation battle. That was to say, in order to prevent human masters from going through the tribulation, the Sea Clan launched a war during the tribulation, trying to shake the minds of those who were going through the tribulation with the death of all kinds of creatures. When the tribulation battle began, what he could do was to go through the tribulation as soon as possible. Otherwise, the more tragic things he saw, the more unsettled he would be, which would affect the success rate of the tribulation. The earlier he passed the tribulation, the more normal the battle would be. Then, their attention would return to Han Fei. They would try to cast a shadow on Han Fei's path after he passed the tribulation, giving birth to inner demons and hindering Han Fei from seeking the Tao. However, he heard Jing Er's voice transmission. "Alright, hurry up and transcend the tribulation." After all, the battle before the tribulation had always been a trial battle. This time, so many people tried to stop Han Fei before he passed the tribulation because they heard that he was a peerless heavenly talent. But now that it had been confirmed that Han Fei was indeed as strong as he was rumored to be, how could a real heavenly talent of the royal city take action so easily? It was really unwise to fight with others at the peak of the law enforcer realm. There would be other opportunities in the future. Kill. At that moment, there was a burst of fighting sounds, and the scene was extremely lively. Third. Asking for tickets. Do. Tomorrow, end of this chapter. Chapter 1196. In Han Fei's perception, a battle had begun hundreds of kilometers away. Behind him, the insect race and the sky race who were originally watching the show spread out like the tide, killing in all directions. There were 3 types of battles in the Dark War Port. The first was the battles between the strong, the fearless barrier, and the third was the chaotic battles in the dark waters. During the tribulation, the Waterwood Sky Alliance's army had already charged into the dark water domain. Among the Sea Clan, all beings below the Tao-seeking realm charged into the fearless barrier. When the real battle began, the level of one's strength would determine the type of opponent one would face. The fearless tree's target had always been Tao-seeking great demons. As soon as the battle started, Han Fei turned serious and looked back, only to see that the Insect King was still lying on the surface of the sea. The Insect King growled, "Tribulation Transcendence." Water Luster said telepathically, "Master, we can also go through the tribulation." The voice of the Fire Seed appeared, "Master, once we pass the tribulation, some of the restrictions of the sea-quelling painting will be lifted." Water Luster and the others were just trapped by the sea-quelling painting. Otherwise, he would have successfully transcended the tribulation. Han Fei was thinking, this time, his own tribulation has already caused such a big commotion. If the number of tribulations suddenly increased from 1 to 6, who knew what would happen? However, it seemed that Punishing Blade and the others could only undergo tribulation in Shuemu Heaven, right? Once they returned to the Yin-Yang Heaven, the 5 of them would have to undergo tribulations consecutively. It would be strange if they didn't find out. At that time, as long as the big clans discovered him, they would definitely know that he had appeared, and they would definitely cause trouble. Han Fei gritted his teeth and replied, "I have my own considerations. I'll pass this tribulation first." Of course, Han Fei didn't dare to ask the Punishing Saber and the others to go through the tribulation together. After all, they were the 5 legendary creatures. Han Fei shouted in a low voice, "Bug King, please protect me." Han Fei stood proudly on the surging sea, looking into the void, and his aura began to rise crazily. It wasn't the first or second time that he had seen someone transcend a tribulation, and it wasn't the first time that he had helped others transcend a tribulation. How strong would an ordinary person's 3rd stage lightning tribulation be? Han Fei knew it very well. As long as he had enough time, what was a mere 3 heavenly tribulations? Moreover, it wasn't as if he had done nothing during those 4 years in Wind and Rain Village. He had drawn more than 100 large-scale formation diagrams. Han Fei wasn't afraid of a heavenly tribulation. Of course, Han Fei was going to break through the 4th level of the indestructible body in one fell swoop. If the Starlight Immortal body was said to gradually improve the physique, first refining the body, then refining the flesh and blood, then refining the bones and tendons. Now, he had completed all 3. Even his bones were glowing, and his blood was faintly golden. The 4th level was the mastery of the indestructible body and the mastery of it. The difficulty of breaking through was evident. Come! As Han Fei roared, the spiritual energy within 300 kilometers swept over crazily. Feeling that the spiritual energy was not enough, Han Fei waved his hand, and hundreds of thousands of kilograms of spiritual springs sprayed into the air, turned into billowing spiritual energy, and was absorbed into his body. Rumble, weng weng, in the sky, the tribulation clouds were densely packed, and within a radius of 300 miles, day turned into night in an instant. Black clouds covered the sea like a black dragon turning over, blocking out most of the light. Hiss! Beside the Bug King, many bug race explorers exclaimed, "This tribulation cloud is huge." On the sea demon's side, a venerable roared, "Pass the tribulation." At that moment, a total of 5 heavenly talents of the Sea Clan were passing the tribulation together. In an instant, the tribulation cloud in the sky was indeed dispersed. In the blink of an eye, the tribulation cloud that was 300 kilometers long was reduced by half. Someone frowned. The bigger the tribulation cloud, the more powerful it seems, right? However, this time they chose to pass the tribulation in such a close place. Do they want to rob the tribulation? Jing sneered. What are you thinking? Are they helping to rob the tribulation? Wusheng Shui frowned slightly. Wait, if the other heavenly talents are not weak and really rob Han Fei of half of the tribulation's power, will he pass the tribulation completely? Jing Er's face stiffened. She calculated with her fingers and looked up at the sky. Suddenly, Jing said to him via voice transmission, Han Fei, you can't let them rob you of your tribulation. You are different from others. You're a body cultivator. As long as you pass the tribulation, you can still become an explorer. However, without enough heavenly tribulation, it won't help your cultivation. Han Fei twisted his neck. Rob me of my heavenly tribulation. Are they qualified? Who? At that moment, a golden giant stood proudly on the surface of the sea. The golden giant pointed at the void, and the invincible fighting intent was completely activated. The golden light was dazzling. Rob me of my tribulation. Why don't you take a look at yourself? After that, Han Fei held the blood-drinking knife and roared in a beast voice, Today, I, Han Fei, have a knife that can cut the heavenly tribulation and destroy all enemies. Are there any enemies here? Boom! When the path of invincibility appeared, the tribulation cloud in the sky rolled out for thousands of kilometers. The arcs of blue lightning were like the shadows of dragons, roaring incessantly. What? The path of invincibility? On the Shui Mu sky's side, the insect king suddenly raised its head. It was guarding the place, but it was also shocked. Wushang Shui exclaimed, Is this guy on the path of invincibility? Jing was also a little surprised. Yes. I just learned about it. On the sea demon's side, a venerable shouted, Not good, it's the path of invincibility. This heavenly tribulation is invincible. Retreat. The 5 royal city powerhouses who had just triggered the heavenly tribulation were all shocked. Are you fucking kidding me? The heavenly tribulation is coming. Where can I retreat at this time? The heavenly tribulation spread for thousands of kilometers. The 5 sea clan powerhouses still wanted to retreat, but suddenly they heard a thunderous explosion. Not good, we can't run away. Block it. Ha ha ha! Han Fei opened his arms, and his flesh and blood were shattering inch by inch. Rumble, at that moment, in the 1,000-kilometer thunder purgatory, endless electric arcs cut through the sky, illuminating the surroundings. Han Fei was wrapped in a large lightning pillar 100 meters thick, surrounded by flashing electric arcs. On the other side, 4 of the 5 peak-level sea spirits who didn't have time to escape were directly crushed in an instant, leaving not even a wisp of smoke. There was only a mermaid with 3 green scales in front of her. However, even though the defense of these 3 green scales was amazing enough to withstand such a terrifying lightning tribulation, they were still full of cracks. Huff, huff, huff. When Han Fei reappeared, his body was badly mutilated, and his skin could not be seen at all. Even his bones could be seen in his hands. However, Han Fei's chest was heaving, and a terrifying vitality was recovering. His meridians and flesh were rapidly recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Han Fei was also frightened. Isn't my heavenly tribulation a bit too strong? He thought that his heavenly tribulation would be very difficult at most at the 3rd one, but it shouldn't be so difficult at the beginning, right? But who knew? Just the first lightning tribulation had almost taken half his life, and his body had almost been split apart. At this moment, Han Fei remembered the Heaven Heart Pill. Old Bai said that this thing could increase the success rate of breaking through to the Explorer realm by 30%. Swish! Han Fei knew how strong the heavenly tribulation was, so he ate it first. As soon as the Heaven Heart Pill entered his mouth, a lotus petal appeared on his head. Jinger, who was watching in the distance, said in surprise, Huh! Isn't this the Heaven Heart Lotus? Wushang Shui said in surprise, Is this a spiritual object? I didn't expect that he even has such a spiritual treasure. Jinger shook her head slightly. It's a pity that the Heaven Heart Lotus is not so powerful. For ordinary people, it can help them block a heavenly tribulation. But for his heavenly tribulation, it can't even block half of it. But Han Fei didn't think so. He felt that the vitality in his body suddenly burst out. Just now, his flesh and blood had been regenerated, and his skin had grown again. Swish! Han Fei didn't forget to cast the divine healing technique on himself to speed up his recovery. At that moment, Han Fei felt that his body was full of explosive power. Every drop of his blood seemed to be devouring energy. Rumble, the second heavenly tribulation fell. However, this time, to everyone's surprise, the heavenly tribulation this time was a little red. Bam! 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 The 3 green scales in front of the mermaid immediately exploded. At the moment when the heavenly tribulation fell on her, she tried to resist it with a divine weapon, but with a bang, both the divine weapon and her were smashed into pieces and turned into ashes. This was the heavenly tribulation on the road to the invincible realm. Those who thought they were invincible could resist it, but ordinary people didn't even have a chance to resist it. It seemed that the heavenly tribulation knew that it had killed the uninvited guest, so it slowly began to shrink. From more than 1,000 kilometers just now, it began to shrink to about 900 kilometers. Han Fei, who was also hit by the second heavenly tribulation, was not much better than before. The petal completely turned blue, as if it had absorbed endless lightning, and floated above Han Fei's head. Han Fei was badly mutilated again, and inside and outside his body, electric arcs kept jumping. Han Fei found that the so-called Heaven Heart Pill only blocked more than 30% of the power of a single heavenly tribulation. It didn't increase the success rate of passing the heavenly tribulation by 30% as old Jiang said. In fact, Han Fei really wronged old Jiang this time. The Heaven Heart Pill could directly block an entire heavenly tribulation for ordinary people, but was Han Fei an ordinary person? Of course, the Heaven Heart Pill dispersed more than 30% of the power of the heavenly tribulation. Han Fei continued to breathe and quickly swallowed the energy of the second lightning body. At that moment, Han Fei felt that his bone marrow was liquefied. On his bones, there were spots of golden light visible to the naked eye. However, in the sky, the lightning was getting stronger and stronger, but there was no heavenly tribulation. Suddenly, Han Fei realized that the Heaven Heart Pill didn't help him digest the energy, but helped him temporarily absorb more than 30% of the heavenly tribulation. Immediately, Han Fei raised his head, and the lotus petal fell directly into Han Fei's mouth. Pipa. Dozens of cracks appeared on his body that had just recovered, shaking Han Fei's internal organs. However, the second heavenly tribulation was divided into 2 parts and digested, so he passed it safely. Chapter 1197. As soon as the 2 heavenly tribulations passed, both Shui Mutian and the sea demons had a plan in their hearts. At this moment, at least 1,000 pairs of eyes from both sides were staring at them. They all saw Han Fei's heavenly tribulation clearly, and they were all shocked. From the moment the first thunderbolt fell, they found that Han Fei's first heavenly tribulation was probably much more powerful than the last heavenly tribulation. With a single strike, the 4 monarch city prodigies were reduced to ashes. Even the heavenly talents of the royal city were annihilated by a bolt of lightning. It could be seen how talented Han Fei was. There was still 1 merman left. He used his life green scales to block, but he could only barely block the first bolt of lightning. The second heavenly tribulation had just appeared when it was split apart. At this moment, Han Fei swallowed 2 heavenly tribulations in a row and felt that his war body had been pushed to the limit. Through the breathing technique, the energy devoured had already reached the limit of conversion. At this moment, all the energy in Han Fei's body seemed to be undergoing subtle changes, as if his body was being reconstructed. Not only was the energy demand too high, but even the spiritual spring in Forge the universe was being consumed spontaneously. All in all, the power of 2 heavenly tribulations had been swallowed by Han Fei. It seemed that he had reached his limit, but it wasn't enough. Han Fei's body had digested to its full capacity, but the speed of digestion couldn't keep up with the speed of the transformation of his physique. At this moment, the shadow in the sky had already turned bluish-purple, and many of the tribulation clouds had already begun to change color. Wu Shangshue's expression changed. They really came. As long as the law enforcer realm was strong enough, the purple tribulation would come. If Han Fei doesn't die today, he will definitely become a king in the future. Purple tribulation. On the sea race's side, the venerable level powerhouse's face was solemn. He thought to himself, as expected of someone the Life Queen values. But, why haven't I heard of this guy before? Logically speaking, the sea race should know more or less what kind of experts and prodigies the human race had, and what kind of subordinates the Life Queen had. But where did this Han Fei come from? How did such a prodigy suddenly appear? At this moment, Han Fei was still calm. The higher the talent, the stronger the strength, the greater the tribulation. Throughout history, there had been purple tribulation, but Han Fei's purple tribulation cloud hadn't completely condensed yet. Would he be able to cross it? It was still a problem. Han Fei was a little stunned himself. Wow, I've never encountered such a situation before. Han Fei had helped a lot of people survive tribulations. Han Fei was already good at transcending tribulations. Han Fei had seen the color change in the heavenly tribulation before. However, he had never seen such a complete change. Just a moment ago, it was a fucking blue cloud. Now, how did it turn purple just because it was bouncing around? From the bottom of his heart, the old turtle's voice rang out, "Brat, if you have the ability, then go all out." If he managed to survive this tribulation, his golden body would be half complete. At that time, there shouldn't be any explorers in this barren land who can shake your body. The cracks on Han Fei's body were recovering. His vitality was strong, and his qi and blood were surging. As he looked at the sky, he said, "Half of the golden body? What do you mean?" The old turtle cackled. "This is a sublimation of life. After surpassing this realm, you only need to surpass one more realm to break away from the category of humans, and you can call it a golden body." Golden body. The old turtle didn't hide anything. In the path of cultivation, different paths lead to the same destination. In the path of body refinement, forging a golden body is nothing. However, the golden body level belongs to the king. If you can condense a king's golden body in the explorer realm, I don't need to tell you the benefits, right? Who? While Han Fei swallowed the surrounding energy, the energy fruits and spiritual spring in Forge the Universe were still collapsing. These energies were being transformed crazily. Originally, Han Fei thought that this was a process of transformation from a peak-level law enforcer to an explorer. However, after hearing what the old turtle said, it didn't seem right. Was this a process of his body evolution? Crack. Rumble, in the sky, 7 or 8 purple thunderbolts appeared at once, which really shocked Han Fei. Why are there so many? However, in the next moment, multiple thunderbolts gathered and struck down. Puff, puff, crack. 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 At that moment, Han Fei felt that his flesh and blood were exploding. Almost every cell in his body was bursting. The moment blood spurted out, it was evaporated by the thunderbolts. His battle robes and hair disappeared without a trace in an instant. Who? Swish. 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 Vitality surged crazily, but it couldn't keep up with the speed of the collapse of his body. At the moment when the thunderbolts hit him, Han Fei suddenly understood why the Life Queen wanted to exchange the water of life for resources with him. Even if he didn't die after taking such a thunderbolt, it would take him a few days to recover. However, in this case, he didn't have a few days to slowly recover. Clatter. In the purple thunderbolt, a drop of emerald green liquid collapsed in an instant, turned into gas, and was absorbed into Han Fei's body. Suddenly, a massive amount of vitality gushed out. Han Fei only felt that on his bones and blood, golden spots of light began to appear exponentially. At the moment when the thunderbolt struck, Han Fei felt that at least 1/10 of the blood in his body had turned golden. There were more changes in his bones, and on the crystal-clear bones, there were dense golden spots. Huh! A low roar came from Han Fei's throat. Han Fei felt that every part of his flesh and bones was trembling. However, this didn't stop him from being excited. Han Fei thought to himself, this water of life is really awesome. With just one drop, I survived the most difficult tribulation. At this moment, he could still feel the endless vitality. That feeling was countless times faster than the vitality naturally generated by the indestructible body. This feeling was similar to what he felt when he swallowed the sacred fruit of destiny. However, the divine fruit was hard to come by. And he had 10 drops of the spring of life. As long as he survived the heavenly tribulation and became a peak-level explorer, he would have plenty of ways to obtain more resources. However, seriously injured, before Han Fei had time to get excited, the old turtle's voice suddenly sounded, "Boy, use the remaining 9 drops of spring water." Han Fei was speechless. Han Fei's face was almost blown off. At this moment, only the flesh was puzzled. What does he mean? This time, before the old turtle spoke, a big octopus suddenly tried to tear the void and attack Han Fei. "Get lost." Wu Shangshue's cold voice echoed, "Who wants to force me to kill today?" Jing said to him via voice transmission, "Han Fei, don't be stingy with the spring of life. You still have a heavenly tribulation. No matter what, you must get through it." Huh? Han Fei was stunned. Aren't there only 3 heavenly tribulations? When Han Fei's flesh and skin had just regrown, he saw Jing taking a step forward and lashing out with a long whip in her hand. The Insect King shouted, "Han Fei, this is the 4th tribulation, commonly known as the 4-9 Kings tribulation. This means that the heavenly Tao recognizes that you have the potential to become a king, so this last tribulation is extremely difficult." Han Fei was shocked. The 4-9 Kings tribulation. I've never heard of it. In Han Fei's heart, the old turtle's voice was indifferent. What's there to be surprised about? I've long guessed that there would be this tribulation. The only thing I'm surprised about is that everything seems to be going well for you, boy. Once you pass this tribulation, it means that you have unlimited potential. As long as you don't die, there is a high chance that you will become a king. Han Fei took a breath. Do I need a fucking heavenly tribulation to tell me? I knew it a long time ago. The old turtle was speechless. Don't be smug. Not everyone can resist the 4-9 Kings tribulation. You were lucky enough to survive the 3 thunderbolts because you have a solid foundation and a strong physique. However, if one were to forcefully resist the 4th thunderbolt, there was a high chance that even geniuses would be struck to death. But you are different. You have the spring of life, which can increase your lifespan by 900 years. You can swallow the 4th tribulation by force. Han Fei's face hadn't fully grown yet, so it was hard to tell whether it was dark or not. However, the resources that he had just bought with all his savings yesterday were now consumed by him. 5 seconds later, when Han Fei's eyes were reborn, he didn't even notice that his appearance seemed to have grown a little better after this tribulation. It wasn't that his appearance had changed, but his skin had become whiter and even glowed faintly. His temperament was also developing a little like old Han's. Of course, this was not the time to study his appearance. Because the tribulation cloud in the sky had changed. The 3rd tribulation cloud was still purple. But at this moment, the tribulation cloud had changed to red. Fortunately, the range of the tribulation cloud had changed from 1,000 kilometers to about 500 kilometers. However, the standard of the energy absorbed by the lightning tribulation had exceeded 1,000 kilometers. Hiss! On the battlefield, a bug exclaimed, "Why hasn't the tribulation ended yet? Why is there a 4th one?" A human exclaimed, "Oh my God, is it the legendary heavenly tribulation? The one who transcends the tribulation of a king can be called a half-king." What? Our Shuemu heaven is going to have a new king. A heavenly talent of the Sea clan changed his expression drastically. How is it possible? He must be a rare genius that only appears once in 1,000 years, right? A human powerhouse shouted angrily, "Envoy Jing is also transcending the heavenly tribulation." Sure enough, the queen values Han Fei. Everyone, kill the enemy. On the fearless battlefield, a Tao-seeking state demon and the fearless tree demon fought to the death. Sea spirit state creatures fought in the dark waters. Peak-level explorers fought on the battlefield outside the heavenly tribulation. A peak-level Tao-seeking state demon tried to step into the range of the heavenly tribulation and force it to change. However, strong masters of the Shuemu heaven rushed out one after another. Swish! 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 Yu Chen shouted, "If you dare to provoke me again, believe it or not, I will become a nascent soul today." The Bug King had never moved. His voice rippled. "I'd like to see who can touch a hair of his under my watch." 1,000 kilometers away from where Han Fei was, there was a fierce battle. And he himself couldn't be distracted at all. The red lightning was about to fall. Second update. Please vote, end of this chapter. Chapter 1198. Rumble. The red lightning was obviously beyond normal people's understanding of the heavenly tribulation. At the moment when the tribulation arrived, Han Fei had already soaked himself in a pool of spiritual spring water. In the end, because he was a little stingy, Han Fei gritted his teeth and only threw 8 drops of the spring of life around himself, and he didn't dare to use the last drop. Even so, Han Fei was almost stunned in an instant. He didn't know whether he was alive or dead. When the last tribulation arrived, the only thing Han Fei had time to do was to throw little Fatty into the bottom of the sea. He thought, "I probably won't die, but what if I die? I'll call little Fatty out first. If I die, someone will save me." Han Fei thought he was vigilant and prepared in advance. Sure enough, as soon as the red lightning came, he was killed. It wasn't that he lost consciousness, but that his flesh and blood began to scatter. The indestructible body was still running, and the swallowing method was still frantically absorbing the energy in the lightning. However, Han Fei could only swallow the energy subconsciously. He seemed to find that he couldn't feel his face and mouth. Not only that, but he also felt that his body was sticky, as if his collapsed flesh and blood were reassembling. Terrifying energy was constantly pouring into this small ball. Han Fei's perception at the moment was limited to his own body. At that moment, Han Fei's bones were covered with spots of golden light. However, every time Han Fei felt that his vitality was expanding to the extreme and he tried to repair his broken body, the terrifying energy instantly burst Han Fei's meridians. Han Fei didn't know or feel the repeated collapse of his meridians and flesh at this moment. He didn't even know where his limbs were. Han Fei felt that he seemed to be recovering. He felt that he had hands and feet, but he couldn't get up. He seemed to be squatting on the ground, and his whole body was squeezed into a ball. He guessed that some of his flesh and blood were collapsing and exploding. However, he didn't panic at all. 8 drops of the spring of life, he had spent almost all his wealth on himself. If I can still die like this, what am I supposed to do? However, what Han Fei didn't know was that after being scoured by the terrifying energy of the red lightning over and over again, the crystal-clear meridians were no longer growing after being shattered again and again. Instead, for some unknown reason, the seed that had been hanging in his dantian was enveloped by a black mist and shattered. Hiss! The pupils of the old turtle, who had been in the depths of Han Fei's consciousness, constricted and his heart trembled. What's going on with this kid? How did he manage to walk 2 different paths? Before the invincible realm, he took another path. At this moment, the old turtle smacked his lips. Dual meridians, that's rare. One was a heavenly vein inheritance, and the other was a level 9 spiritual vein. He clearly has 2 peerless meridians, but one is unawakened and the other is broken. Doesn't that mean he has no meridians to use now? The old turtle was a little surprised to find that the seed that Han Fei had just shattered didn't seem to be weak. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to survive until now under the strong pressure of the road to the invincible realm. But at this moment, when Han Fei was transcending the tribulation, a naturally bred spiritual seed was shattered, and so was the level 9 spiritual vein. The old turtle thought to himself, if they're all broken, won't Han Fei become a big meatball in the future? He probably won't even be able to put his body back together. However, the next moment, the old turtle was furious. Huh! Damn it, you can't. My great Tao, my great Tao. Thief, don't use my great Tao. In the old turtle's roar, he saw that a golden path was crushed inch by inch. Shameless robber, you're stealing. You broke my Tao just to help a little brat rebuild his meridians? The old turtle was furious. However, the demon purification pot didn't listen to the old turtle. It could be seen that the energy fruits, spiritual spring, and the spiritual energy contained in the black pearl in the demon purification pot, as well as the remains of the creatures that he looted, the seasonings that he planted, and the drop of water of the spring of life that he secretly saved, were all shattered at this moment. The demon purification pot seemed to be extremely short of energy and had used up all the resources that could be used in Forge the Universe. And in that mass of flesh and blood, a clear blue vein began to slowly appear. As that vein became more and more complicated, a brand new spiritual vein was born. The old turtle trembled and shivered. I see. It's not that he can't survive this disaster, but that you forcibly attracted this disaster in order to shatter his Tao seed and spiritual vein. What the hell are you? The 3 small vines of the demon purification pot swayed gently as if nothing happened. However, in the eyes of the old turtle, he was already dumbfounded. What exactly is this gourd? If it's that kind of top-level treasure, why haven't I heard of it? Han Fei felt that everything was very natural. Before, he thought that he must have been dazed by the lightning. So, he didn't feel where his hands and feet were. Now, when the endless energy was swallowed, he finally felt his hands and feet. Although they were still a little soft, he didn't panic. As long as he could feel them, it meant that his hands and feet were still there. After another moment, Han Fei felt that he should have made it. He could already look inside and see his bones. His whole body had turned a faint golden color. However, the color was not deep enough, which made Han Fei a little unhappy. Didn't they say that his body was half golden? I thought it was half golden and half white. It turned out that the color was just a little lighter. Han Fei didn't care, but then he found that his meridian seemed to be a little wrong. Why can't I feel the existence of meridians? Well, they're still there. Could it be that I haven't fully recovered? No, why has my blood turned golden? Gold, isn't it expensive? Can't I bleed freely in the future? Hey! Suddenly, Han Fei was shocked. Where is my seed? Where is my seed? Han Fei looked inside and saw that the heaven spirit detoxifying insect had begun to spin with the demonic energy. As for his seed, why was it gone? Did something happen just now that I don't know? When Han Fei's flesh and blood grew back, and his eyes and hair all grew back, he raised his hand and felt it slightly. Bam! As Han Fei clenched his fist, the void exploded slightly. Fuck! How did I become so strong? Han Fei subconsciously looked at the demon purification pot. He was shocked by what he saw. Owner Han Fei, level greater than 70, Junior Explorer, Spiritual Energy, 120001/120001 Spiritual Power, 20001/20001 Perception Range greater than 1668 kilometers, Law Enforcer, Invincible Strength greater than 198 waves First Spiritual Heritage, Unknown Second Spiritual Heritage Unawakened First Spiritual Beast, Twin Yin-Yang Spirit Swallowing Fish, Level 59, Second Spiritual Beast Unawakened Main Art Sky Stealing Technique, Level 6 of Void Fishing, Venerable Level, Divine Quality, Hiss. Han Fei was stunned. Of course, he knew that it was a huge leap from a peak-level law enforcer to an explorer. It was an improvement in life level. To put it bluntly, no matter how weak an explorer was, he was far stronger than an ordinary heavenly talent law enforcer. Of course, Han Fei was an exception. After all, when Han Fei was a law enforcer, he was not an ordinary heavenly talent law enforcer, but a law enforcer with the potential to become a king. Once, Han Fei and Shiman Linglan calculated that the weakest law enforcer who became an explorer after a tribulation had more than 50 waves. Usually, most of them were 70 or 80 waves, and very few could reach 100 waves. And when Han Fei was a peak-level law enforcer, his strength was only 54 waves. Even after 4 years in the Wind and Rain Village, his strength was only 76 waves. In terms of strength alone, even a freakishly strong heavenly talent like him could only rival a junior explorer if he didn't rely on secret methods. As far as Han Fei knew, the limit of his strength after this breakthrough was about 120 waves. This was not a wild guess, but a conclusion based on his experience on the Avenger. At the beginning, he could reach more than 100 waves. Then, when he was a peak-level junior explorer, he might be able to reach more than 200 waves. Of course, with his conditions, it shouldn't be difficult for a peak-level junior explorer to reach the huge strength of 200 waves. But the scary thing was that after transcending a heavenly tribulation, his strength was close to 200 waves. This number had even reached the level of the most ordinary intermediate explorer. This time, there was no secret method to enhance it. Compared with the increase in strength, the strength of his spiritual power and soul didn't seem very outstanding. His perception range only increased by more than 300 kilometers, which wasn't too much. Just when Han Fei was wondering if he should continue to consolidate his strength. All of a sudden, he froze. He suddenly noticed a special message. Why did his first spiritual heritage become unknown? Where's my level 9 spiritual heritage? Why is it unknown? Han Fei immediately looked inside and felt for a while, only to find that his meridians seemed to have changed. In his brand new meridians, spiritual energy and energy shuttled back and forth extremely fast, without any jerkiness. Why is it so smooth? Wait. What kind of meridians are these? Han Fei suddenly widened his eyes, no longer looking inside, but directly looked at his arm, and pinched his meridians with his hand. Gulp. After a long time, Han Fei slowly swallowed. He seemed to have discovered something extraordinary. Although he seemed to have broken through the 4th level of the indestructible body art. But his meridians seemed to have been refined by himself. Or to be exact, they were fake. He couldn't even pinch them with his fingers, but they really existed. Han Fei immediately took a breath. Is it because my body hasn't fully recovered? Don't panic, I still have a drop of the spring of life. But the next moment, ow! Where's my spring of life? Where's my spiritual fruit? Where's my spiritual spring? Where's my rice? Chapter 1199. To be honest, Han Fei was dumbfounded at that time. His first reaction was, it's fake. How could the things he had hidden in Forge the Universe be gone? Not only were the treasures gone, but even the hot pot he usually ate was gone. The entire Forge the Universe became clean, and even the turf was gone. The top-quality materials that he had yet to forge, the fish skin array diagram that he had drawn, the black bead that he had yet to use, and even the evil book of sirens that he had obtained. Anyway, they were all gone. It didn't make sense. In Forge the Universe, he should have used the spirit awakening fluid that was kept for the bootlickers and the nine-tailed mantis shrimp. Suddenly, Han Fei thought of something. The old turtle, it must be the old turtle. This old guy knows the existence of the demon purification pot. Maybe he has discovered the secret of Forge the Universe. While I'm having a tribulation, he stealthily stole my resources. Han Fei roared, "Old turtle, son of a bitch, come out. Tell me, did you steal my things?" The old turtle was licking his wounds alone. His Tao was abruptly obliterated by someone else. He used his Tao as the foundation for a little bastard's meridians. Was there anything more outrageous than this in the world? Suddenly, Han Fei howled like a madman and made a lot of noise. How could the big turtle tolerate that? Han Fei roared, "I know it's you. Except for you, there is no one else on me. I can tolerate you stealing my ingredients, I can tolerate you stealing my seasonings, and I can pretend that I didn't see you stealing my pearls. But how could you steal the only spiritual fruits and the spring of life that I have?" The old turtle roared, "Little bastard, don't be a bloody basin-mouthed turtle. I stole your things. Who do you think I am? It was you who robbed me of my Tao. If it weren't for this little calabash, I would have swallowed you. Han Fei bared his teeth. Okay. You want to swallow me in one gulp? You have a lot of drama, don't you? Calabash, suck him to death, suck this bastard to death. However, the demon purification pot didn't move, which made Han Fei more embarrassed. The old turtle roared, little bastard, just you wait. Originally, since you used this emperor's great Tao, this emperor could still guide you on account of this relationship. Now, I won't say a single word. Are you surprised that your level 9 spiritual pulse is gone? Have you discovered that your Tao seed has been broken? Have you discovered that there is something wrong with you? Heh. I won't tell you. Han Fei. Han Fei wondered if he had misunderstood the turtle. Wait, what else does the old turtle know? Han Fei couldn't help but lower his voice. Alas. Do you know what's going on? Tell me, if you don't tell me, how do I know you didn't steal anything? Scram. The old turtle's voice was like thunder, making Han Fei's head buzz. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. The old turtle seemed to be really angry. The problem was, why was it angry? Could it be that it was still angry about its great Tao? Wasn't that thing stolen by the demon purification pot 4 years ago? There was no need for him to be angry until now. Han Fei thought about it and really couldn't understand this turtle. Forget it, let's get out first. I wonder how the fight outside is going. When Han Fei broke through a spring that wrapped him, he was suddenly stunned. In his eyes, thunder rumbled and lightning arcs fell from the sky. Boom! As soon as Han Fei came out, he was immediately hit by lightning. However, unlike just now, he was a peak-level law enforcer and was about to undergo a tribulation. Then what was this? Was this still a tribulation? Han Fei didn't feel it was difficult at all. He even reached out and scratched his head. The power of lightning seems to be nothing now. Am I used to it? As soon as he released his perception, Han Fei immediately found that the area where this part of lightning was located was less than 300 kilometers. The reason why there was still lightning was because the thick tribulation cloud had accumulated too much before, so it couldn't disperse for a while. Han Fei's heart did a flip. Since it couldn't disperse, why should it disperse? Wouldn't it be better to continue the tribulation? Anyway, he had already come to this point. Because of him, the Sea Clan and the Shuemu Heaven were at war. There was no such thing as a guilty conscience or an inner demon that hindered the great path of cultivation. If it were in the past, even a battle for resources in the village could become a mental demon for Han Fei. But now, he didn't even know if he still had a heart. Mental demons? Immediately, Han Fei said in his heart, punishing saber, tree spirit, come out. With Han Fei's current strength, he could actually summon the 5 of them together. However, could they transcend a tribulation together? As soon as the punishing saber and the tree spirit came out, with a bang, the tree spirit was directly cut through. Then, in an instant, smoke began to rise. Of course, this was just ordinary lightning, not the so-called lightning tribulation. Of course, it couldn't kill the tree spirit at once. Otherwise, it would be too much of an exaggeration to say that he was a legendary creature. The tree spirit was dumbfounded. He looked up and asked, Master, are you done with your tribulation? Han Fei said, take the opportunity to transcend the tribulation. The punishing saber trembled slightly. Master, we have already reached the peak and have a complementary array. We can actually transcend the tribulation together. Han Fei's heart did a flip. Oh. Will my life be in danger? The tree spirit's voice was unhurried. No, the spiritual plants of heaven and earth are blessed. Besides, the defense of Earth 9 is amazing. With a thought, mountains and rivers appeared. Then, the fire seed, water swamp, and Earth 9 appeared one after another and floated above the sea. This scene in the lightning tribulation might block the vision of ordinary people, but it definitely couldn't block the eyes of venerables. Good, good, good. The The Shuemu heaven seems to have prepared for a long time this time. He actually wants to transcend 6 people at once. Come on, break through the tribulation area. Humph. Do you think I don't exist? The Insect King bellowed. Han Fei saw that the huge body of the Insect King began to shrink quickly. But in an instant, it successfully turned into a bald young man about 2 meters tall. Han Fei was shocked to see this. This bald man had a cold face, a shiny bald head, and a sharp armor. His arms, legs, elbow joints, and the back of his head were all covered with black sharp blades. Is this the human form of the Insect King? It looks like a bloody killer. However, this was not the end. In Han Fei's eyes, the Insect King split open, and a new Insect King appeared. The Insect King pointed its knife at the void and said in an unruly voice, "No matter how many venerables there are, I'll kill anyone in the Tao-seeking state who dares to cross the line." The mantis shrimp that had been confronting the Insect King before also had a way to transform into a human. Its shape was even weirder than the Insect King's. 2 limbs grew out from its back. It could be seen that although these venerables had transformed into humans, they were far from being like real people. Or rather, they needed this half-human and half-demon state to fight. The Insect King bellowed, "The Shuemu heaven has never been afraid of a fight." The 2 venerables didn't attack immediately, and the venerable on the other side roared, "What a tribulation battle. The Shuemu heaven must have put in a lot of effort for this tribulation, right? In this case, let's see if you can stop the strong masters of the Sea clan in this battle." In an instant, Han Fei felt the void tremble. Then, a shocking crack appeared 500 kilometers away. When he looked again, the Insect King and the Mantis Shrimp Venerable were nowhere to be seen. Han Fei took a breath. It's all the fault of the 9-tailed Mantis Shrimp. Look at them, they are both Mantis Shrimp, but they are already venerables. However, as soon as the venerables left, the situation outside the Fearless City wall was hard to predict. 1,000 kilometers behind Han Fei was the Fearless Barrier, and the Fearless Tree was rooted in midair. A streak of green light pierced an old turtle's body. The old turtle's rock-hard shell was completely useless against the attack. Starting from his turtle shell, a piece of green seaweed-like seaweed suddenly grew out. With a low scream, the turtle was soon covered by the seaweed. No matter how it struggled, even if it tore the void, it couldn't stop the erosion of its soul and body. Of course, the price of killing the Sea Clan powerhouse was that after the Fearless Tree launched this weird parasitic attack, the tree immediately began to wither and wither. In the end, it directly became a dead branch on the seabed and would soon be decomposed and nibbled by plankton. Because of the departure of the Venerable, an old tree soon stood up from the seabed on the Fearless City wall. It was also a venerable, but he was protecting the Fearless Barrier. Seeing that Han Fei had successfully transcended the tribulation, a Tao-seeking state creature shouted, "Han Fei, do you dare to fight?" At this moment, all kinds of perceptions swept over. Everyone found that Han Fei's body was broken like a porcelain doll, and he walked out of the heavenly tribulation with a limp leg. Yu Chen, who had been paying attention to Han Fei, shot an arrow through the void and said via voice transmission, "Why is someone still transcending the tribulation?" Lu Hanley of the Flying Feather clan, who had met Han Fei once, also shattered the void with his sword and tried to rush to Han Fei. However, there was a golden-winged flying fish in mid-air, and its thousands of scales spread out the power of its domain. A big bubble wrapped the 2 of them in the void again. Someone shouted, "Why is there still a creature transcending the tribulation?" At this moment, the tribulation clouds in the sky didn't disperse. Instead, they were colorful, as if rays of light had penetrated from billions of kilometers away. However, Han Fei was already penniless at this moment. He didn't have any belongings. Han Fei shouted, "Everyone, if anyone can lend me some resources, I will pay you back double in the future." Han Fei's shout attracted everyone's attention. Someone took a breath. This person is not dead yet. He survived the 4-9 king tribulations. However, Han Fei's miserable appearance also fell into everyone's eyes. How could the king tribulations be easy to transcend? At this moment, Han Fei must be at the end of his tether. He had exhausted all his resources and was now borrowing. A big bird from the Sky Clan rushed over. Here you go. A sea-swallowing seashell pierced through the sky. Swish. Swish. It meant that dozens of arrows were shot out with sea-swallowing seashells hanging on them. Han Fei was overjoyed, and the phantom grabbed at the void with its big hand. Immediately, a mid-level Dao-seeking state powerhouse rushed over. After all, Han Fei had never killed a powerhouse of this level head-on before. That half-mermaid was proud that he was almost 2 major realms higher than Han Fei. Besides, he also had a secret method, so he shouldn't be any worse than Han Fei. Besides, Han Fei was seriously injured now, so he couldn't be allowed to get resources. Although you have transcended the heavenly tribulation, you can't escape death. As soon as this person shouted, there were fierce shouts from all directions. It was mainly because Han Fei was too fierce before he transcended the tribulation. The 5 heavenly talents of the royal city directly lost him because of the heavenly tribulation. In a head-on battle, Han Fei was strong and domineering. In the battle for the heavenly tribulation, the Sea Clan was completely defeated. At this moment, the heavenly tribulation had just passed, and Han Fei was obviously seriously injured. If he didn't take action now, when would he? Han Fei looked fierce. Even if I'm seriously injured, how can you small fries defeat me? Get out of here. First update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1200. In the blink of an eye, the moment Han Fei walked out of the Thunder Tribulation, many strong masters came from all directions. Some wanted to protect Han Fei, some wanted to kill Han Fei, and some started fighting halfway. Compared with breaking through the fearless barrier, these sea demons preferred to fight normally with people of the same realm. After all, the old trees guarding the fearless barrier all had the will to die. They all had the idea that killing one was not a loss, and killing 2 was a gain. And Han Fei's side seemed to be much less dangerous. The purpose of this battle was to hunt Han Fei. This purpose was so clear that there was no need to hide it at all. Now, Han Fei's appearance was appalling. It seemed that he could be broken into pieces with a push of his hand. Of course, countless strong masters of the Sea Clan flocked to him. This was a person who had passed the 4-9 king tribulations, a peerless heavenly talent that no one in the same realm could defeat. In the void, tranquility was blocked by 2 figures. However, she was not in the mood to fight. Instead, she said disdainfully, "Do you really think the person valued by Her Majesty is only this capable?" Someone sneered. How can it be so easy to pass the 4-9 tribulations? Why don't you let the Sea Clan heavenly talent kill him? Outside the tribulation cloud vortex, Han Fei had no weapon in his hand. He looked at the half-mermaid rushing at him. There was a giant scorpion tail on the harpoon, piercing through the void. Bam! Crack! In the next second, Han Fei grabbed the harpoon with both hands and seemed to have barely blocked the scorpion tail's blow. Several cracks appeared on his chest. Stinky fish and shrimps don't deserve to fight me. However, the golden fist mark was not inferior to the sacrificing punch at all. The punch shattered the half-mermaid's divine battle suit. Although it twisted the laws of space and tried to resist Han Fei. However, in terms of spatial laws, the shifting stars was much stronger than the laws of space. Both were laws. It didn't mean that one's talent was better than others. Puff! Han Fei inserted one hand into the half-mermaid's body and clasped his hands. Rip! A rain of blood poured down. Han Fei roared and looked around. Who else? The people of the Flying Feather Clan who were preparing to rescue Han Fei were speechless. You're so fucking injured and you're still so arrogant. Why are you still so arrogant? However, Yu Chen thought to himself, that's not right. At this moment, it didn't even take him half a breath to kill an intermediate explorer. This increase in strength was not just a little bit, right? Besides, he knew that Envoy Jing would personally protect Han Fei. However, both Messenger Jing and revered Snow were nowhere to be seen. Was this how it looked like he was protecting her? If they wanted to leave, could the sea demon Venerable really stop them? Yu Chen's heart skipped a beat. Is he doing this on purpose? He shouted right away, it's fine. Just stop a peak stage Dao Seeker. Han Fei glanced around. Why did the people who were supposed to protect him retreat? However, he did not panic at all. Looking at the more than 20 people rushing over from all directions, he shouted loudly, just these few people? Are you looking down on me? Peng peng. Han Fei soared into the sky, and his fists were like dragons. Every time a golden fist mark appeared, the waves would rise and the void would explode. Someone cut a deep wound on Han Fei's body with a knife. However, with a flip of his hand, a kitchen knife swept over and directly cut it in half. A big turtle pressed down like a mountain. Han Fei, boy, look at my mystic turtle sea suppression technique. In the sky, 100-meter-long turtle shadow smashed through the void and suppressed Han Fei. Huh. Han Fei's face changed drastically. His arm was full of cracks, and his fist glowed red. Break! That punch forcibly blasted through the turtle shell, and the old turtle died. It was speechless. Wasn't Han Fei already dead? Why was his combat power still so strong? Someone shouted, Han Fei is at the end of the line. Everyone, let's work together. Han Fei shouted, even if I die today, I'll cut you under my feet. What he said made it sound like it was true. At this time, Han Fei was thinking, why are there so few of them? Give me some more. Bam! 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 In the 100-kilometer battle, the waves were surging, the sky was full of golden fist shadows, and occasionally there were knife marks tearing the sky. From time to time, Han Fei could be seen being hit by a hammer and his body was covered with cracks. After killing only 10 people, Han Fei seemed to be about to collapse at any time. Someone shouted, put in more effort, add more oil, and kill him with blood. 100 minutes later. There were only 3 or 5 people left in the field. Someone was speechless. Why isn't he broken yet? However, Han Fei didn't seem to be faking his qi and blood at this moment. Han Fei wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and roared, now that I've made a breakthrough, do you think a bunch of Dao-seeking state monsters can kill me? Boom! Boom! All of a sudden, the second bolt of 5-colored lightning descended. The terrifying lightning didn't seem to be much weaker than Han Fei's 4-9 Kings Tribulation. The punishing saber and the other 4 had profound foundations. When they were facing the first tribulation, although it was colorful, they were able to resist it with their true bodies, and nothing happened to them. As a matter of fact, during the second bolt of lightning, the 5 of them each used their own techniques, using an invisible method to support one another. Water luster froze the tree spirit as if it were wearing heavy armor. The tree spirit injected countless branches into the fire seed, and the fire seed burst into flames. With the essence fire, the fire seed melted the void, and Earth 9 hid in the void gap. Half of the punishing saber was inserted into the strange stone, and the lightning struck the punishing saber. The lightning seeped into the stone through the strange stone. After the lightning, the punishing saber slashed the sky and shattered half of the lightning tribulation. The rest of the lightning was swallowed and refined by water luster. Seeing this scene, Han Fei was enlightened. The 5 elements reinforced and restrained each other. He wondered if it was his mother who caught the punishing saber and the others and threw them in. This was a little too ferocious. Suddenly, someone shouted, forget about Han Fei. Let's see who's in the heavenly tribulation. Hearing this, Han Fei immediately shouted, Crab, if you provoke me again, I'll kill you first. However, the crab didn't care at all. Han Fei was really not easy to defeat. Although he had just become an explorer, his body was so strong that he couldn't be shaken even if there were cracks all over his body. At this moment, the crab's giant pincers reached into the tribulation clouds. Swish! A figure flickered in the air. Han Fei actually crossed nearly 500 kilometers of the void in an instant and arrived directly. Hiss. Not good, he's pretending. Damn it. Bam. A shocking sledgehammer fell from the sky. Crack. Crack. The crab's pincers were shattered. Before the crab had time to escape, it was punched into its shell by Han Fei. Then, the crab's vitality declined, and the air of death around it became intense. Hey! Who told you not to play by the rules? Who told you that you have so many ideas? You can die now. The so-called cracks on Han Fei's body surface were recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. That was just a fake scene caused by him activating the indestructible body just now. In fact, Han Fei was full of energy at this moment. He could fight for an entire day and night without feeling tired. Hum. 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 A group of Tao-seeking state monsters retreated quickly. Someone exclaimed, "Impossible. You just passed the heavenly tribulation. How can you be safe and sound?" Han Fei curled his lips and laughed. Do you think I'm as useless as you? What can a mere heavenly tribulation do to me? I feel like I can kill a peak Tao-seeking expert with a single punch. Is there any such expert who would like to fight me? Humph. A sound wave shattered the void and blasted directly in front of Han Fei. Han Fei's eyes turned cold and he stomped, and a King Kong giant appeared behind him. With this soft snort, Han Fei was pushed back 1,000 meters in midair, his face dark. Han Fei gritted his teeth and grinned. The Venerable One is going to attack me personally. In the future, don't let me find an opportunity. Otherwise, I'll sweep through your sea spirit realm. At this moment, the colorful light in the sky was even more dazzling. Many people were confused and had no idea what was going on inside. They were surprised that since Han Fei had come out, who else was undergoing a tribulation inside? Han Fei had mixed feelings. Even though he had invested all of his family's assets in this wave, he was still a little worried. However, his overall strength and confidence had indeed become much stronger. The 5 legendary advanced explorers, and he was one of them. From now on, the explorers wouldn't be invincible, but they wouldn't have to worry about being hunted down at will. In any case, the explorers represented the top forces of the Yin-Yang heaven and the Water-Wood heaven. As long as the Venerables didn't show up, the explorers could almost dominate the 2 domains. At this moment, the light bursting out of the punishing blade and the other 4 dyed the sky into 5 colors. So from the outside, it looked like a 5-color lightning tribulation. In fact, this was Earth 9 covering the other 4 spirits with its own power. The tree spirit and the others tried their best to feed Earth 9 back. That was why such a marvelous scene appeared. Humph. No matter who is undergoing a tribulation, come out. A peak-level Tao-seeking expert pierced the sky with a spear and stabbed at Han Fei. Han Fei sneered. Do you think you can see it just because you want to? Who do you think you are? Han Fei took a breath, activated the Beast King art, and punched out. The terrifying power and the power of the spear exploded at the same time. Wow! Han Fei took 7 or 8 steps back and felt his own strength. There was a bloodstain on his fist. This meant that the power of his punch was still a little weak. However, he didn't panic at all. Just now, he didn't use all his strength. Huh? How is it possible? How can a beginner explorer match a peak-level Tao-seeking expert? Many explorers of the Flying Feather clan exclaimed and fought crazily. Especially Yu Chen, who shouted in a low voice, "How dare you be distracted by my arrow? Today, I'll kill you to prove my Tao." Rip! In the air, there was a dazzling flash, like a star flashing in front of him. Immediately afterward, there was a ding sound of an explosion more than 300 miles away. Crack! 1 arrow to break the barrier, 2 arrows to seize the soul. Yu Chen appeared out of thin air and pointed the longbow in his hand. Han Fei could only see 2 black spots appearing in the void. Then, the head of the shrimp soldier, who had barely blocked Yi Yuchen's arrow, suddenly exploded. At that moment, spiritual energy surged over from 1,000 kilometers away. Yi Yuchen stood proudly in the void. He was about to enter the Tao. Rumble. At this moment, the lightning tribulation also descended. 5 colored mystic light hit the sky together. The tree spirit and the others managed to hold on for 3 breaths and were unscathed. At this moment, Wushang Shui stepped out and threw the spiritual spring and energy at Yi Yuchen as if they were worthless. At the same time, a drop of the spring of life was injected into Yi Yuchen's body. After that, Wushang Shui looked at Han Fei with a complicated expression. Second update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1201. Wushang Shui guessed that Yi Yuchen's breakthrough at this time must have put too much pressure on him. After all, he was about to become a venerable. It would be fine if he was challenged by Han Fei. The reason why Wushang Shui sent him to the fearless barrier to kill a peak-level Dao-seeking state cultivator was to make Yi Yuchen feel better. However, on the second day after Yi Yuchen came to the fearless battlefield, Han Fei also arrived. Not only did Han Fei arrive, but he also transcended the tribulation in front of him. That wasn't all. In this battle, Han Fei had made a killing. The 4-9 Kings tribulation was definitely a rising star. On this day, how many people were shocked? In fact, the main mission of the Flying Feather Division's elites today was to assist Jing, in suppressing the situation. Well, Yi Yuchen was about to enter the Tao. He felt that if he didn't make a breakthrough, Han Fei might be able to fight him head-on. Chirp, someone entered the Tao, which was the same as Han Fei transcending the tribulation. The Sea clan panicked when another venerable appeared in the Shuemu heaven. They had vowed to destroy Han Fei's tribulation. However, not only did they fail to destroy the tribulation, but they also sent a venerable to the Shuemu heaven. Who could tolerate that? Immediately, a white-eyed wild eagle broke through the void and shouted, "Jing, retreat." Buzz, buzz, buzz. At that moment, Serenity, the insect king, Wushang Shui, the white-eyed wild eagle, and hundreds of explorers of various clans all retreated to the periphery of the fearless barrier. The tribulation clouds in the sky had quickly dissipated. Han Fei entered the tribulation clouds with the star transposition technique. As soon as the mountain and sea painting unfolded, the 5 legends including the tree spirit were all taken into the sea quelling painting. At that moment, the punishing saber said, "Master, if possible, can you give us some resources? We've consumed a lot of energy in this tribulation." Han Fei casually threw the resources he just asked for. The corners of his mouth twitched and he thought, I don't even have any resources now. I don't even have a spiritual fruit. Han Fei frowned and said, use them sparingly and stabilize them in the painting. Let me kill a batch of Dao-seeking state monsters, and then I'll give you some resources. Swoosh! The wind blew, the tribulation clouds dispersed, and the eyes of the venerables fell on Han Fei. The Venerable One could see Tree Spirit and the others going through the heavenly tribulations. The venerables on the Waterwood Sky's side were only curious. There was a big secret on Han Fei. There were actually 5 special beings following him. Yes, they didn't think the tree spirits were Han Fei's contractual spiritual beasts. Otherwise, wouldn't there be too many contractual spiritual beasts? As for the sea demons, they had already remembered Han Fei. Moreover, someone had already memorized the faces of Tree Spirit and the others. To put it bluntly, from today onwards, Han Fei had been included in the Sea Demon King City's key kill list. At this moment, Yi Yuchen was seeking a breakthrough. This would probably last for at least an hour, right? There were bound to be supremacies rushing over from Shuemu heaven. After all, the tribulation transcendence technique was useless for the birth of a venerable one. A shark-headed merman shouted, Waterwood Heaven has 4 battlefields that require protection. It's not that easy to enter the Tao. Wu Shangxue indifferently said, if you want to fight, then let's fight. As long as you can pass through the fearless barrier. The Insect King's voice rippled. Insect Sea Tactic. At the moment the insect king spoke, a large number of insect clan creatures crawled out of inexplicable holes, coral crevices, and concealment arrays in the dark water. In just an instant, hundreds of thousands of insect clan creatures crawled out of the dark water. The so-called dark water battlefield, at this moment, was completely one-sided. For the birth of a new venerable, the insect king revealed all the insects that had been hiding in the dark water for a long time. Almost all of them were hidden fissures, and there were more than 100,000 of them. In the rear, the outcome had been decided, and the one-sided slaughter was about to begin. In the void, the smell of gunpowder was extremely strong. Both sides seemed to be waiting for someone. In the endless sky, a deep voice sounded, "Immortal Enchantress, I thought you were helping a junior to pass the tribulation. It turns out that what you're planning is to raise another venerable one. Hey, after 100 years, what do you think of this battle? Immortal Enchantress?" Han Fei was puzzled, wondering who the Immortal Enchantress was. But in the next second, the Life Queen's voice suddenly sounded, "Every time you enter the Tao, there will be a battle. The Shuemu heaven has been preparing for this battle. What can the Bai Bei kingdom do to me? Humph. Let's wait and see. This brat is called Han Fei, right? Today, he doesn't need to leave the Shuemu heaven. He'll be killed as soon as he goes out." Han Fei was still surprised. Why was the Life Queen called the Immortal Enchantress by the sea demons? He suddenly heard that the other side's king mentioned him. At that time, he was dumbfounded. For a moment, Peaceful and the others all looked over. Someone shook his head slightly. Sometimes, it's not a good idea to be too high-profile. Han Fei was just too outstanding. You've passed the 4-9 King Tribulation, which is already outstanding enough. Why did you pretend to be weak? Now you're done. You can't go out. Han Fei immediately cursed, "Old bastard, did I dig your ancestral grave? What does it matter to you whether I go out to sea or not?" Silence. Wushang Shui glared at Han Fei. "Are you out of your mind? Venerable, it's fine if you curse. After all, I admit that you have the talent of a venerable. But you're a fucking king. If the king really left the royal city without a care and fought the Life Queen, it was hard to say whether Yu Chen would be able to survive and whether he would be able to break through to the supremacy stage." Wushang Shui glared at Han Fei. "Go back to the Shuemu heaven. What happens here has nothing to do with your tribulation battle. Now it's a battle to enter the Tao." Han Fei was stunned for a moment, thinking, this battle started because of me. How can I leave? Immediately, Han Fei took a breath. I'm very strong now. I'm invincible in the Tao-seeking realm. Everyone, get lost. Wushang Shui glared at Han Fei. You'll only get in the way if you stay here. The Sea clan will only want to take you and Yu Chen down at the same time. If you want to fight, fight in the Sea of Flames. Peaceful looked at Han Fei. Go. As she spoke, Peaceful's voice resounded through the void. Those who haven't reached the semi-venerable level, fight in other domains. On the battlefield of the Dark Water domain, those who aren't from the Insect clan, fight in other domains. Han Fei immediately scratched his head. It seemed that the battlefield had changed a bit beyond his expectations. In his heart, the old turtle's reluctant voice sounded, "What are you waiting for? The venerable battle is about to begin. What's the point of standing here? Have you reached the semi-venerable level? If you don't, can you withstand a slap from a venerable?" Fuck. Han Fei was shocked. So they were going to fight the venerable battle. No wonder something was wrong. Even the Life Queen had come out to speak. At this moment, Han Fei discovered that the Shuemu heaven was not much safer than the Yinyang heaven. After all, in the Thousand-Star City, if it weren't for the rebellion of the Thug Academy, no venerable would be seen in the next 800 years. However, in the Shuemu heaven, the venerables and peak-level explorers lived and ate with ordinary people. Usually, they would patrol the 4 domains. Therefore, the Shuemu heaven seemed to be passively defending, but battles were more frequent. and the yin-yang heavens seemed to be fighting fiercely, but in fact, compared with the Sea Clan, it was a bit small. After all, those who were fighting on the front line were all insignificant soldiers. With a thought, Han Fei seemed to be able to feel that there was an invisible barrier in the void. He stretched out his hand and the void was torn open. Huh. Fuck. The void was torn open so easily. Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. This was much more convenient than finding the weak point of space when he used the heavenly void divine walking technique. Han Fei said, I'm leaving. If Yi Yuchen hadn't become a venerable, I would have owed the Shuemu heaven a venerable big demon. Jing, help me fight back, and I'll give you a Manchu Han imperial feast in the future. He still had to accept the favor that he owed. Although he could safely undergo the tribulation here because old Han had a deal with the Life Queen, it was the Insect King, Yi Yuchen, and Jing, who protected him. Not only did they protect him, but they also helped the Tree Spirit and the others. Not only did they protect him, but they also helped the Tree Spirit and the others pass the tribulation. In fact, at this moment, Han Fei could say that his purpose of coming to the Shuemu heaven had all been achieved. Except that he was a little poor now, everything went more smoothly than he imagined. When Han Fei broke the void and rushed all the way to the Shuemu heaven, hundreds of creatures rushed with him. A one-horned longhorn beetle flapped its wings and flew to Han Fei. Han Fei, Han Fei. Where are you going to fight? Let's go together. Han Fei was taken aback and thought, I don't know this insect. A big green bird flew close. Insect Fei, why don't you go to the whole sea? The big insect buzzed. There are many insect queens guarding the whole sea. Do they need me? No, the whole sea is a place for training soldiers. It lacks explorers and experts. Then I'd better go to the whole sea. The green bird glanced at Han Fei and said coquettishly, I heard that you can turn into a bird. Why don't you try? Han Fei said gloomily, I can't. The green bird didn't believe him. You liar. Forget it, which territory are you going to? Why don't you not go out? A shocking war is about to break out in the Dark War Port. You can't be taken away now. Han Fei's heart did a flip. Where are you going? The green bird cried coquettishly, the Sea of Fire is not suitable for me. Our Sky Clan will probably choose the Realm of Ice. Han Fei narrowed his eyes. He was not familiar with the whole sea. He was a little familiar with the Realm of Ice and the Sea of Fire. Whether in terms of the strength of the enemy or the resources, the Sea of Fire was better than the Realm of Ice. Wait, suddenly, Han Fei's eyes narrowed. That's not right. It's meaningless for me to stay in the Waterwood Heaven anymore. I've already transcended my tribulation, and so have the Tree Spirit and the others. My purpose of coming to the Waterwood Heaven has been achieved. Besides, I still owe the Life Queen 50 Dao-seeking state big demons. I'm broke. At this time, the most important thing to do is to do what I used to do. What did he do for a living? What else did I do apart from robbery? Han Fei immediately said to the green bird flying beside him, I suddenly remembered something. I'm going to go first. Swish. Under the green bird's astonished gaze, Han Fei disappeared with a swish. The green bird was stunned for a long time and muttered, sure enough, I can't fall in love unless I'm a bird. The third chapter. The daily chapter, end of this chapter. Chapter 1202. In the sea outside the realm of ice. Han Fei hid in Forge the Universe when he was only about 10,000 kilometers away from the outer sea. As soon as Han Fei entered Forge the Universe, the old turtle's voice came out. The old turtle said, sure enough, I knew that this space would not be as simple as a storage space. Is it a paradise created by this gourd itself? The old turtle's voice was not so sure. After all, the current scope of Forge the Universe was still a bit small. Besides, Han Fei didn't know why, at this moment, Forge the Universe seemed to have been peeled off and there was nothing left. Even the seeds of ordinary spiritual fruits were gone. Seeing this scene, Han Fei felt that his heart was about to break. This meant that for a long time in the future, he wouldn't even have seasonings to eat. Han Fei couldn't help asking, "Aren't you surprised that this space can contain living things?" The old turtle sneered. "What's there to be surprised about? The reason why sea-swallowing seashells and sun-moon shells can't contain living things is that they are already dead. If living things can still survive in them, it's against the rules of the Great Way. But your gourd, at first glance, is still a living thing. It's actually not a big deal for it to give birth to a space. Logically speaking, with the ability of this gourd, it shouldn't only give birth to such a small space. It may be able to open up a world." The old turtle muttered, but Han Fei didn't know what he was talking about. When he heard the old turtle say that it could give birth to a world, Han Fei thought of something. The demon purification pot should be able to do that, right? Han Fei said calmly, "Aren't you surprised at all? Have you seen a lot of soul treasures like this?" The old turtle sneered. "Why should I tell you? You think about how to kill me every day. Of course I'll listen to you." Han Fei grinned. "What are you talking about? I can't kill you, can I? Let's not beat around the bush. Old turtle, you are so strong that it's impossible for me to let you out now. The problem is that the gourd doesn't listen to me. In this case, we can cooperate. What do you think?" The old turtle snorted. "Cooperate? Do you know how to cooperate with others?" Han Fei said leisurely, "It depends on who you're talking to. Normally, I would just casually snatch a creature of the same realm as me. But, considering that you're going to stay with me for a long time, perhaps when I become a king, you will still be in my body. Why don't we cooperate now? It's good for both of us." The old tortoise said, "Are you sure?" Han Fei said unhurriedly, "You should at least tell me where my countless spiritual springs and spiritual fruits are, right? We have to build a foundation of mutual trust, right?" The old turtle pondered for a moment. "I can tell you if you want me to. However, since you're going to rob others, we'll have to decide on the distribution in advance. Otherwise, there's no way to discuss this matter." Han Fei immediately said, "Go ahead. Let me hear it." The old turtle's eyes lit up. "Go rob them, and all the treasures you get will belong to you. However, the life force of those creatures you killed belongs to me." Han Fei raised his eyebrows. "All the vitality belongs to you? You can still devour their vitality now?" The old turtle sneered. "Nonsense, I came here as a soul. As a result, I was seriously injured by your gourd and could only be trapped here. Without a physical body, I can only rely on the power of my soul. It's because I'm strong that I haven't fallen asleep at this moment." Han Fei frowned. "Isn't it inappropriate to devour people's vitality?" The old turtle was speechless. "Do you think it's inappropriate to devour people's vitality? You've done a lot of wicked things. What's there to be embarrassed about?" Han Fei said with a black face, "Hey, hey, hey. Speak properly, don't make personal attacks. If I give you the vitality, what will I eat?" The old turtle, in an instant, the two of them were bewildered. The old turtle almost roared, "Is my life incomparable to your appetite?" Han Fei smiled awkwardly. "Don't get too excited. What if you want to harm me after you get the vitality and break free from the shackles? What should I do?" The old turtle roared. "When my soul was in its heyday, I couldn't harm you. Are you worried that I will harm you now? Shouldn't I be the one who should be worried?" The more he spoke, the angrier he became. The old turtle said, "No, there is no trust between you and me. You have to swear to the Tao that you can't harm me." Immediately, Han Fei was unhappy. "What do you mean by swear? Do you think I'll sell my soul just to know a little bit of information that I'll find out sooner or later?" Immediately, Han Fei thought to himself, "I must find a way to kill this thing. It's so evil." The old turtle was speechless. He roared, "Look at you, with your temper, you still have the nerve to say that I am bad? You want to kill me every day, but you say that I'm evil? The old turtle was also speechless. He had been a devil all his life and had never met such a disgusting person. He only wanted to squeeze benefits from him, but he was unwilling to give anything. Since he was a devil, he had to have some conscience. This son of a bitch. Bah, this kid has no conscience at all. Han Fei froze for a moment. It seemed that the old turtle could hear his thoughts. Forget it, Han Fei didn't care anymore. He said leisurely, fine. Let's not beat around the bush. What you are worried about is whether I will kill you or not. I can guarantee that I won't kill you. To be honest, as I get stronger and stronger, it's only a matter of time before I can control this gourd. That's what you are worried about. In that case, you only need to promise me that you will answer my questions. When I am in danger, you must help me. Just don't try to harm me. The old turtle scoffed. I'm only a wisp of my soul now. How can I help you? Han Fei immediately said disdainfully, you're lying. Do you think there's no old grandpa living in my body? Even others can help you, but you can't. Why do you keep calling me I? Are you shameless? Okay, don't talk nonsense. I know that it shouldn't be a problem for you to kill a venerable with a single breath. If you agree, let's take an oath. The old turtle was speechless. Forget it, don't take an oath. I'm already pissed off by you. If I still had my body, it would be a piece of cake for me to kill a king, let alone a venerable. Look at me. Can I do it now? If I were so powerful now, I would have killed you with a single breath. Han Fei thought about it. That did make sense. He immediately said, then can you take me to escape from a venerable? The old turtle roared, why do you have to make life difficult for a venerable? Did a venerable steal your wife or your treasure? Why don't you take a look at yourself? You keep saying venerable, venerable. Han Fei snorted and said calmly, okay. Then lower your requirements a little. Once there is a crisis at the venerable level, you must help me get through it. Otherwise, we'll have to go our separate ways. Anyway, I can deal with Dao-seeking level demons by myself now. The old turtle was silent for a long time. If you want me to help, I must at least have the strength to do it. I need to devour vitality to maintain my soul. Han Fei said, swear first. The old turtle said, boy, if you want me to swear, okay. However, you have to promise me one thing. Han Fei rolled his eyes. What is it? The old turtle snorted. I can help you, but before you become a king, you can't kill me. Han Fei pondered for a moment. You have to swear first. Although the old turtle wanted to tear Han Fei apart, he had to lower his head. He had to find a way to establish a cooperative relationship with this kid. Otherwise, he would be killed by this kid sooner or later. Immediately, the old turtle said solemnly, I swear to the origin that I will answer some of Han Fei's questions that don't involve karma. If my strength allows, I will take action in time when Han Fei is threatened by a venerable. Before Han Fei has the intention to kill me, I can't have the intention to harm him. This oath requires Han Fei to also swear. Otherwise, it won't count. Han Fei was stunned for a while, dumbfounded. That's it? The old turtle snorted. I swear to the origin that once you violate this karma, the consequences are not something you can bear. Okay, I'm done. You can tell whether I'm sincere or not. Of course, Han Fei knew what the old turtle meant. If this guy really wanted to kill him, he should have done it when he was in the Wind and Rain village. It could be seen that this old turtle probably also wanted to kill him. However, there was one thing that Han Fei didn't quite understand. Since the two sides had formed a basis for cooperation, he actually didn't want to kill him every day. In that case, why did the tortoise insist that he not kill it before he became a king? Or could it be that now that he had become a king, he could kill it? Han Fei didn't understand, but it wasn't a big problem. He immediately said, okay, I swear to the origin that I will not kill the old turtle before I become a king, and I will provide the old turtle with basic life-prolonging vitality. This oath is based on the fact that the old turtle keeps his word. Otherwise, it won't count. Although he knew that Han Fei had changed some words, such as not killing him to not killing him, and so on. But fortunately, in the eyes of the old turtle, Han Fei was willing to compromise. Neither the old turtle nor Han Fei had expected that their first cooperation as allies would be so childish, almost like children playing house. Even Han Fei didn't know whether the origin would really care about him or not. If he went back on his word, would it really have a big impact? However, thinking of what the heavenly desolate city promised Li Huang and what old Han once said, Han Fei felt that he would rather believe this kind of oath than not. But in any case, he couldn't feed too much vitality to this old turtle. However, since they were already allies, Han Fei immediately asked, "So, why did my resources disappear?" Vertex. Chapter 1203. Faced with Han Fei's question, the old turtle couldn't help but sneer. "Haven't you noticed that there is something wrong with your spiritual heritage?" Han Fei was stunned. "My spiritual heritage doesn't seem to have a problem. Although the level 9 spiritual heritage has become an unknown spiritual heritage, the effect doesn't seem to have become worse. On the contrary, his spiritual energy and energy use efficiency are higher now. The effect of automatically devouring energy and spiritual energy is also better. I wonder if the recovery effect has become better. In short, I feel that everything is good except for the lack of money." Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "So, what does the loss of my resources have to do with my spiritual heritage?" The old turtle snorted coldly. "I don't know whether you should thank your gourd or hate it." Han Fei couldn't help but look at the demon purification pot. "What do you mean?" The old turtle explained, "You have a level 9 spiritual heritage. In a sense, a level 9 spiritual heritage can be called a king heritage. As long as you have a level 7 spiritual heritage or above, you have a chance to become a king. You also have your own Tao seed, and any path that can produce a Tao seed is actually not weak." "No, wait a minute. Tao seed? What Tao seed?" The old turtle sneered. "Haven't you noticed that the seed in your dantian is gone?" Han Fei's eyes lit up. "So? What's going on?" The old turtle said leisurely, "Your gourd probably despised your Tao seed and level 9 spiritual heritage. So, while you had a breakthrough in body refinement, infinite vitality, abundant resources, and the support of my Tao, it forcibly shattered your Tao seed and cut off your path. Then, with my Tao as the foundation, I reconnected a meridian for you. Now, do you understand? It's not that your resources are gone, but that all your resources have been used by this gourd to change your destiny." "Wow!" Han Fei was dumbfounded. "No, wait a minute. Slow down. You're saying that my seed is a Tao seed? What's the specific use of a Tao seed?" The old turtle chuckled. "That's a Tao seed. The existence of a Tao seed means that you will inevitably embark on a Tao. Becoming a venerable is only a matter of time. There is basically no bottleneck." "Wow!" Han Fei was shocked. "What? That little seed can make me become a venerable?" Han Fei couldn't have felt better. "I don't even know what the seed is for, and it's been crushed by the calabash before I figured it out." But he heard the old turtle say, "Humph, little seed, weren't you also a little seed before you were born? Why are you panicking? Don't you have another path to invincibility?" Han Fei's eyes lit up. "There are seeds on the invincible road too. Was it called an invincible species? How did you do it?" The old turtle, he heard a hysterical roar from the bottom of his heart, "You still want to get an invincible seed? Why don't you go to heaven? There are millions of people in the world who walk the path of invincibility. If they all give birth to an invincible seed, wouldn't they all be invincible?" Han Fei curled his lips. "Not bad." The old turtle snorted. "There's no such thing as invincibility in this world. Therefore, it is impossible for there to be an invincible species." Han Fei said awkwardly, Okay. Then tell me, what happened to my meridians?" Is it still a level 9 spiritual pulse? The old turtle seemed to be gnashing his teeth. However, thinking that it was his own path, he said solemnly, level 9 spiritual pulse? Only the spiritual pulses of mortals will be graded. The spiritual pulses of the real masters will never be graded. Or, they are called heavenly veins, mutated veins, ancient veins, growing spiritual veins, and even the legendary divine veins. To what extent can they grow? It doesn't depend on what the veins are, but how you cultivate them. In the age of gods, some people could cultivate divine veins even with ordinary veins. In the end, it depends on the person. Han Fei keenly grasped a word. Age of gods. What is the age of gods? Immediately, the old turtle shut up. You can find the answer to this question yourself later. I don't know. Han Fei raised his eyebrows. It seemed that this question was more profound. However, Han Fei didn't panic. Since they had formed an alliance, he would have plenty of time to ask in the future. At least now he knew the ins and outs. It turned out that the demon purification pot thought that his aptitude was not good enough, so it forcibly used resources to give him a better talent. If that was the case, it was not bad. Inexplicably, his talent had become higher, and it had already surpassed the so-called mortal meridian. Such a good thing couldn't be encountered by others even if they wanted to. Although Han Fei still had a lot of things to ask this old turtle, now was not the time. At this moment, a war was breaking out in the Dark War Port. A large number of creatures must have gathered in the 4 domains of the Waterwood Heaven at this moment. For example, when he escaped from the Ice City wall just now, he hid in Forge the Universe because he sensed a Tao-seeking state monster coming. Of course, Han Fei wasn't here to fight. He would only fight in the Waterwood Heaven if he was forced to. A person as excellent as him but as poor as he was should take advantage of this opportunity to go deep into the enemy's camp while the enemy's rear was empty. The old turtle said, although your breath-holding technique is not weak, with such a small technique, as long as the enemy has a semi-venerable or a venerable, they will find you immediately. Han Fei said, Humph, what's the hurry? The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up. He didn't expect that he would use the Heaven Extended Art again in the Waterwood Heaven. The Heaven Extended Art could transform into 3 kinds of creatures, ordinary sea demons, red demons, and half-mermaids. After the transformation, he would be no different from a real sea demon. The mutation would take 3 days before he could bear another mutation. Of course, Han Fei had already tried the first kind, an azure sea blue demon. This meant that only at the level of an azure sea blue demon could he barely be regarded as an ordinary creature in the sea clan. As for those ordinary sea monsters and inferior man-fish, they were probably not even cannon fodder. This time, Han Fei would certainly directly transform into a half-mermaid. Otherwise, in the Waterwood Heaven, what if the azure sea blue demons and red demons were of that kind of rare species? If so, wouldn't he attract more attention? Huh. Han Fei sat on the ground, his face suddenly twisted, and scales began to grow on his body. Ha! Wait. Han Fei had been prepared for excruciating pain, but this transformation didn't hurt much except a little discomfort. Is it because a half-mermaid is very similar to a human? The old turtle was surprised. It turns out that you have such a technique. You can transform into all things with a human body. This kind of technique is quite rare. I'm afraid the level of your technique is also very high. It's indeed difficult to detect a venerable. Han Fei was still in the mood to respond. There are many amazing techniques left by our human race. This transformation, unless it's a life and death moment, is almost no different from a real sea demon. The old turtle sneered. Then you have to temporarily seal your spiritual heritage. Otherwise, just the fact that you swallow energy naturally will attract the attention of a venerable. Han Fei frowned. Seal. The old turtle said, since your spiritual heritage has surpassed the mortal realm, it should be able to circulate as you wish. However, you haven't learned how to control it yet. Try to suppress the flow of spiritual energy in your spiritual heritage later. Han Fei didn't know if it was because his spiritual heritage had changed too much. This transformation was surprisingly smooth. From the beginning to the end, it didn't even take half an hour. Han Fei glanced at his tail, which flapped on the ground. He felt it was very flexible. However, it was not convenient. Then, spiritual energy surged in his body, and demonic chi burst out. Then, his tail split open. The human simulation technique that Han Fei looted finally came in handy. Although he had deduced the human simulation technique to the level of the demon spirit transformation, a half-mermaid would be too similar to a human being. However, if a half-mermaid practiced the demon spirit transformation, it would be too similar to a human being. Besides, the basic requirement of the demon spirit transformation was a level 7 demonic heritage. That was a very high level of demonic heritage. The sea race would definitely work hard to nurture such a prodigy. They wouldn't leave him to roam freely outside. Therefore, Han Fei chose the advanced human simulation technique, which was a little inferior, to grow legs, although it looked a little unnatural. Although it looked a bit unnatural, he had already taken a human form, which should be quite common among the Sea clan. It was neither outstanding nor low-level. Hee hee. Han Fei grinned, revealing a mouthful of steel teeth. Now, all he needed was a set of sea demon weapons and clothes. The old turtle said unhurriedly, "Your transformation technique is as smooth as flowing water. Did you do this a lot before?" The old turtle seemed to know that Han Fei's trip wouldn't be easy. Seeing that Han Fei quickly turned himself into a sea demon, he knew that Han Fei was up to no good. Han Fei bared his teeth. The Sea clan rules such a vast ocean. How can I survive in their territory if I don't turn into a sea demon? The old turtle mumbled, "Actually, you can exclude the ferocious beasts of the Sea clan. If the territory you live in is large enough, you will find that the Sea clan and the ferocious beasts in the sea are often on opposite sides." Han Fei's eyelids cramped. "Oh. What do you mean?" The old turtle said awkwardly, "You see the Sea clan riding all kinds of ferocious beasts because they are too weak. When you get out of this ocean, you will find that the ferocious beasts and rogue cultivators in this boundless ocean are equally terrifying." Han Fei didn't care. "Then let's talk about it later. If I turn into a ferocious beast now, I will only be crushed by the Sea clan." With a thought from Han Fei, he appeared under a layer of ice at the bottom of the sea with a swish. Because of the concealment of the array, ordinary creatures couldn't find Han Fei at all. However, at the moment when Han Fei suddenly appeared from Forge the Universe, immediately, a sense of perception swept over. Similarly, Han Fei also immediately scanned back, only to find that it was an advanced Tao-seeking state half-mermaid. At this moment, the 4 major regions were preparing for a war, so it was not surprising that a Tao-seeking state half-mermaid appeared. The half-mermaid asked, "Who are you? What are you doing here instead of going to the battlefield?" Han Fei immediately walked out of the concealment array, swam quickly towards the half-mermaid, and said in the sea demon language, "Master, I just discovered a secret. It seems that a human powerhouse crossed the void and the ice city wall. I'm afraid that person is up to no good, so I'm here waiting for a strong master like you to deal with this matter." "Huh? Really?" Seeing that Han Fei spoke the sea demon language fluently and quickly, the half-mermaid didn't notice anything wrong. At this moment, he noticed Han Fei's face and couldn't help frowning. "Ha! Why don't I know you?" Han Fei was already very close to the half-mermaid, and he grinned. "Master, how can you not know me? I'm... Damn you. Vertex." Chapter 1204. Han Fei's voice was still drifting in the water, but he was already gone. "Huh." The 100 Beasts' soul-suppressing roar stunned the advanced Tao-seeking state demon. At that moment, Han Fei's speed soared to the maximum. At such a close distance, the void lines had already been launched. However, at the moment when the void lines touched the demon, he felt a trace of resistance. It seemed to be a soul treasure or a soul secret technique. However, Han Fei was already an explorer at this moment. Therefore, Although the other party had some soul defense methods, he still couldn't stop the void lines. Not only that, but he also activated the sky stealing technique. At that moment, pure vitality poured into his body. Han Fei said, "Old turtle, this is my gift to you. Eat slowly and let me see what kind of information is in his soul." In a flash, Han Fei inserted a hand into the half-mermaid's body. At the same time, he controlled the half-mermaid with the void lines and threw out all the weapons that it had recognized as its master. There were more than a dozen of them, including a high-quality divine weapon. Puff! 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 The half-mermaid wanted to struggle, but his soul was stuck in a stalemate, and the weapons were removed one by one. Not only did the weapons become ownerless, but the commonly used weapons would also backfire on the owner, causing him to bleed from his 7 orifices and shake his internal organs. Han Fei punched, broke the half-mermaid's dantian, and injected spiritual energy into its body, directly destroying a small part of its body. Caught off guard, an advanced Tao-seeking state demon was completely destroyed by Han Fei in the blink of an eye. The old turtle didn't think much of Han Fei's sudden attack. He just felt that Han Fei was very suitable to fall into the devil's path. Oh, no, he was simply a little devil. Just a second ago, he was reporting information to the other party with a smile, but the next second, he killed the other party. It was impossible to guard against him. Who could have expected that a creature who spoke the sea demon language and looked like a half-mermaid would suddenly attack him as a companion and a superior? The old turtle couldn't help but sigh. Han Fei's strength has soared so much, and he has such powerful means. It seems that the realm of ice is doomed. How easy it was for a strong master to obtain high-end resources when hunting. Han Fei had a deep understanding of this. He casually picked up a sun-moon shell. Let's not talk about what's in this sun-moon shell. Just the speed of finding resources was like heaven and earth compared to before. Of course, when Han Fei scanned it with his perception, he immediately cursed, "What the hell?" A large pile of divine weapon materials that hadn't been purified yet, and they still had the nerve to put them in the sun-moon shell. TCH, there are less than 200 spirit fruits. Only 300,000 caddies of spirit spring. Has he gone mad from poverty? Han Fei didn't feel good at all. After all, this was an advanced Tao-seeking state demon. I can understand that you want to forge a supreme-grade divine armament. However, in order to forge a divine weapon, he had used up all his money. Wouldn't it cost money to refine it? Han Fei was not in the mood to refine any weapons now. He had so many weapons on him that he couldn't use them all. He casually threw the more than 180 spiritual fruits into Forge the Universe, opened a small pit in Forge the Universe, and threw more than 300,000 caddies of spirit spring into it. With such a small amount of resources, Han Fei felt that it wasn't even enough for him to deduce a combat skill. Injecting the Beast King technique would cost 500 million. Han Fei's face was black. While this Tao-seeking state demon was still alive, he was reading its soul. He didn't know if it was because his soul had become stronger, but when he read other people's souls, the picture he saw was several times clearer than before, and the content was much richer. After a while, Han Fei frowned slightly. It turned out that in the depths of the realm of ice, although there was no royal city. However, there was a very special place called the Ice God Gorge. The Ice God Gorge was about 600,000 kilometers away from the Ice City Wall. Within a radius of 50,000 kilometers around the Ice God Gorge, there were 2 mountain ranges that looked like undersea snow mountains. There was a sea demon city on the periphery, where many sea demons lived all year round, like a place similar to the 10,000 Demon Valley. However, Han Fei knew that there were venerables in the Ice God Gorge. He just didn't know if the venerables would defend the Ice God Gorge during the Waterwood battle. Of course, Han Fei's first goal was not the Ice God Gorge, but a hot sea about 200,000 kilometers away from the Ice City Wall. Perhaps it was due to the influence of the Sea of Flames, but within this area of 200,000 kilometers, there was a large area known as the Land of Fire that was recovering with warm currents. Many creatures liked to cultivate there. Yesterday, if Han Fei and Shu Xiaoman had kept going deep, they would have come to this fire spring. Han Fei directly shattered the internal organs of this Tao-seeking state demon, threw it into Forge the Universe, and said to the old turtle, "The vitality of an advanced Tao-seeking state demon is enough, right? Old turtle, after eating, we have to work." The old turtle whispered, "This little vitality is not enough." Han Fei sneered. "Don't pretend. Do you think I didn't see anything? A peak-level explorer is enough for you to have a full meal. Today, an advanced Tao-seeking state demon is definitely a full meal for you. Don't forget, we just made an agreement." With that, Han Fei stepped into the void and rushed to the place of the fire spring. The periphery of the fire spring, about 50,000 kilometers. It had only been 6 hours since the war broke out. Along the way, Han Fei easily killed 3 Tao-seeking state demons and 6 peak-level sea spirits. At this critical moment when the war broke out, Han Fei originally wanted to parachute into the enemy's territory. However, when Han Fei ran, he found that something was wrong. Now, all the creatures in the entire realm of ice seemed to have been summoned. A massive number of them were gathering towards the ice city wall. If Han Fei wanted to parachute into the enemy's base camp, the direction was always opposite to the direction of the sea demons. Even if he tore the void, he could always meet Tao-seeking state demons of the Sea Clan. Their realms were the same, so it was unrealistic to completely avoid their sight in the void. Therefore, Han Fei simply stood in the void and waited. Because he used the Heaven Void Divine Walking technique, he had the ability to see through the enemy. Han Fei suddenly stretched out his hand from the void and directly pinched a shark at the peak-level sea spirit to death. For the current Han Fei, pinching a peak-level sea spirit to death was no different from stabbing an ant. At most, this ant was a little stronger. The old turtle said, "If it were me, I would quickly locate the area where you are when I find that a large number of strong masters on my side have died." Han Fei frowned. "It doesn't matter. I have a plan. I just need to put on a show. It's not a big deal." Han Fei suddenly stepped out of the void, and for a moment, a large number of creatures in the sea perceived him and came over. However, Han Fei was a Tao-seeking state powerhouse. Although the sea demons didn't know Han Fei, many sea demons and sea spirits said, "Greetings, Master." "Oh. All of you, come here." The sea demons didn't know what was going on, and a few sea spirits were still wondering why they had never seen this master before. However, the army was marching towards the ice city wall, and Han Fei could summon a lot of people with a casual call. "Master, what can I do for you?" Han Fei scanned with his perception, and then his eyes lit up. Han Fei said, I'll give you an opportunity." Opportunity? A sea spirit realm powerhouse was refreshed. Does this master have something important to arrange for some people to do? Han Fei casually threw a drop of water to the nearest sea spirit realm half-mermaid. "Do you know what this is?" The sea spirit realm half-mermaid was dumbfounded and then shook his head slightly. "Master, this is..." "Haha, this is your opportunity." With that, Han Fei opened his mouth. Bam! Rumble. Immediately afterward, there was a terrifying explosion, and the core range directly swept more than 50 kilometers. The infinity water, which had advanced together with Han Fei, exploded again, and its power blasted all the creatures within 10 kilometers into powder. Even Han Fei himself was blasted to roll in the sea. At that moment, there were probably no less than 10,000 creatures killed by Han Fei. There were 5 or 6 sea spirit realm cultivators and nearly 100 sea demon realm cultivators. Under this explosion, they were all turned into ashes. In his heart, the old turtle shouted, "Attention, it's coming." Bam! Han Fei put away the infinity water, and energy surged all over his body, shattering all his skin. His chest was covered with blood, and he stepped into the void and rushed to the place of the fire spring. In the end, Han Fei didn't forget to change his face. That face was the face of a junior Tao-seeking state big demon that he had just killed. This level was neither high nor low, so it shouldn't be taken seriously. Just about 10 minutes after Han Fei ran in the void, someone suddenly rushed over, blocked Han Fei's way, and shouted, "You Dafeng, stop." Han Fei looked at the person in front of him in panic, his face extremely pale, and he said anxiously, "Master, don't go forward. I'm afraid the insect queen will attack us." While talking, Han Fei controlled the blood from the corner of his mouth. Of course, this blood was not Han Fei's own blood, but that he extracted from the half-mermaid that was killed in the forged sky. The old turtle reminded him, "You're at the peak of the Tao-seeking state. Don't neglect it." The insect queen. The peak-level Tao-seeking great demon was stunned. Why would the insect queen go to the sea in person? However, at the moment when the peak-level Tao-seeking great demon was stunned, suddenly, he heard an earth-shattering roar, and a terrifying soul-shaking power rushed straight into his head. Not good. At that moment, he knew he had been fooled. However, although Han Fei's void lines couldn't control his soul, he could extract his vitality. Snowmorn was fully activated. The experience of using a sea-quelling bizarre treasure in the explorer realm was completely different. Han Fei felt that he was holding a divine weapon that could cut the sky and the sea. He pulled out the sword, and the sword mark penetrated the peak-level Tao-seeking great demon. However, the opponent was at the peak-level Tao-seeking after all, and his physique and blood were far better than that of an advanced Tao-seeking expert. Han Fei's sword was extremely fast, but most of it was still subconsciously resolved by the demon. Of course, half of the Tao-seeking great demon's body was blown up, his soul was pierced, and his vitality was taken away. He didn't feel any better. In the blink of an eye, Han Fei roared, "Old turtle, do it." Five breaths later, a man wearing a turtle shell tore through the air and appeared where the peak Tao-seeking cultivator had fallen. Are there any survivors? The tortoise man turned his head to look in Han Fei's direction. A moment later, he saw Han Fei frantically running for his life. At this moment, Han Fei was a bit miserable. One of his arms was dangling, one of his legs was lame, and his body was covered with cracks. Blood flowed out from the wounds all over his body. Bang! Han Fei felt as if he had hit a wall. That terrifying force shook his internal organs, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood that he had already prepared. As the saying went, there was no such thing as dizziness in a life-and-death situation. Han Fei immediately bared his teeth and roared, and the divine weapon harpoon in his hand was surging with demonic energy. Freeze! Han Fei felt a chill all over his body, thinking that he had been frozen into an ice block. When Han Fei took a closer look, he saw a bald man with white eyebrows and a long beard, wearing a blue and white turtle shell, staring at him coldly. "Tell me, what happened? Who killed you?" Han Fei was shocked at first, then overjoyed, and finally said with a shiver, "Master. It was too fast. I couldn't see it clearly at all. Maybe it was a venerable from the waterwood heaven who seemed to be able to devour vitality. I could only see a black mist, and then just a shockwave, which had already seriously injured me. I couldn't resist it at all. Would a venerable realm powerhouse know a half-mermaid who had just entered the Tao-seeking state?" Han Fei thought to himself. The venerable looked at Han Fei up and down. "If I remember correctly, your name is Yu Dafeng, right? Even Yu has fallen, but you are still alive? That's really strange. Forget it, go back and recover." Han Fei thought his acting skills were superb. Anyway, when he was halfway through his words, the old turtle suddenly narrowed his eyes, broke the void, and struck somewhere in the void. Han Fei couldn't help but wonder, who did this old turtle find? In his heart, the old turtle said leisurely, "Boy, this is what you call a trick. It's called hiding under the lamp." Han Fei was speechless. "How did you do it?" The old turtle snorted. "Have you forgotten that I am an emperor? As long as a wisp of my aura descends into the void, how can I not attract its attention?" Han Fei continued to maintain his current seriously injured body and rushed all the way to the place of the fire spring. At the same time, he muttered in his heart, I don't know what vitality is. I don't know how much I should give this old turtle to eat. However, this old turtle is really powerful. It lives in my body and can even send its aura to other places. He couldn't underestimate it. Han Fei, who was seriously injured, also encountered a lot of Dao-seeking state monsters on the way. However, at this moment, he couldn't take action. The old turtle reminded him, "It's fine if you kill a batch in the front, but if there is a problem in the rear, the Venerable just now will definitely notice that there is something wrong with you." Han Fei curled his lips. "Don't worry, I have experience. Speed is the most important thing in war. I'll destroy their nest first and then escape immediately." In the place of the fire spring, Han Fei's perception swept around. At this moment, there were not many creatures in the fire spring. At least in his perception, there was not a single Dao-seeking state monster, but 7 or 8 sea spirit state monsters. Huff! Han Fei immediately took a deep breath. What is an opportunity? This is an opportunity. Han Fei said, "Old turtle, I know your perception range is definitely not worse than mine. Let's find them together." The old turtle said, "I need vitality." Han Fei curled his lips. "We are already allies. Why do you care about this? Do I look like someone who needs your vitality? Let's sweep this area and get the vitality of a Dao-seeking state monster." Okay. In the old turtle's view, these resources that Han Fei pursued were actually of no use to him. Even if these things fell to the ground, he wouldn't bother to pick them up. Therefore, the old turtle was quite willing to exchange these so-called resources for vitality. Buzz buzz buzz, half an hour later. Han Fei stood in an original sea spirit cave residence, which was shrouded by a killing array. However, in Han Fei's view, the level of this killing array was too low and could be broken at any time. Of course, Han Fei knew that the cave residences of half-mermaids generally didn't have too many good things. At this moment, Han Fei saw a few sea-swallowing seashells in the shell bed in this cave residence, and only a pile of colorful refined stones piled up in the cave residence. Han Fei picked up a piece of refined iron and nodded slightly. Low-quality divine weapon materials. This half-mermaid is quite rich. Well, this shell bed seems to be quite exquisite. Let's take it. There seem to be a few spiritual stones under this cave residence. With a flash between Han Fei's eyebrows, the nine-tailed mantis shrimp appeared. He took out a string of sea-swallowing seashells and hung them on the neck of the nine-tailed mantis shrimp. Han Fei kicked him out. "Go, dig out all the spiritual stones underground for me. I'll give you half an hour, and then come to me." The nine-tailed mantis shrimp froze in place with a dumbfounded look. Why did he ask me to dig a hole again? However, Han Fei's figure had already left quietly. And in this cave residence, except for those glowing water plants, there was no table. He wondered how big the shadow in the hearts of those sea spirit realm half-mermaids would be when they came back and saw this scene. The old turtle couldn't stand it anymore and shouted in a low voice, "If you keep robbing like this, how long will it take you to rob?" Han Fei said again, "Don't worry. Let me tell you, collecting resources is a matter of accumulating little by little to make a mickle. Some things may seem useless to you, but they may be useful in the future." The old turtle said, "Do you think this so-called war will last for a long time? From the time you left the fearless barrier to here, that human should have broken through to the venerable realm long ago. Or, he has already been seriously injured or killed. There shouldn't be much time left for you." Han Fei grinned. "No, I won't. It's rare for us to have a mighty fight. The forces of the four sides have just pressed in. You say the war is over. You don't understand the tricks of the sea demons. They won't let go of any opportunity to weaken humans or other clans." Han Fei was very sure that this attack was similar to the general attack of the Scattered Stars Island. If a large number of strong masters were not killed, this battle would not end at all. Sure enough. Half a day later, Han Fei had swept more than 80 caves in a radius of 10,000 kilometers. In Forge the Universe, the resources were piled up like a hill, although most of them were useless to him. Just as Han Fei took back the nine-tailed mantis shrimp and was about to kill those caves with people. Suddenly, in Han Fei's perception, a Dao-seeking state demon appeared. The Dao-seeking state demon scanned and found Han Fei. Immediately, the demon shouted, "You Dafeng, why are you still here?" Han Fei was stunned. Why is there a Dao-seeking state demon here? But he didn't panic and immediately thought of something. It's a long story. I was ambushed on the way and almost died. I'm here to find some resources to repair it. The Dao-seeking state demon quickly stepped over, looked at Han Fei who was crippled and had a broken hand, and then scanned him with his perception. He suddenly said with a strange look, "Damn, did you take the opportunity to loot all the caves here? Good. You Dafeng, I didn't expect you to be like this." Han Fei thought, "Good, you're just at the early stage of the Dao-seeking state. Since you insist on giving me this express delivery, I have to accept it." However, the Dao-seeking state demon shouted, "No, you Dafeng, you'll get half of it." Huh? Han Fei was taken aback. This person. Is he also here to rob me? Han Fei couldn't help narrowing his eyes and staring at the demon for a while. "Ha, brother, I always take all of it when we meet. You are the first to ask for half of it." Chapter 1206. Just like human society, the society of the sirens was not completely united. Among the sea demons, there were many cunning sea demons. Yu Jing was such a person. Logically speaking, Dao-seeking realm demons like them had to participate in such a sudden battle. However, Yu Jing created a feeling that he was about to make a breakthrough, so he reluctantly stayed in the Ice God Gorge. When all the people left, Yu Jing said that he hadn't made a breakthrough and left 4 hours later than the others. Coincidentally, Yu Jing came to the place of the fire spring. Coincidentally, he met Yu Dafeng, who was plundering. At this moment, hearing Yu Dafeng's sarcastic words, Yu Jing immediately shouted, "Yu Dafeng, I saw everything. Do you think you can eat all the food alone?" Han Fei grinned. "I won't eat all the food alone. I'm going to eat you as well." In the blink of an eye, Han Fei's figure disappeared on the spot. Yu Jing was shocked. Yu Dafeng's strength was even weaker than his. Was he going to fight him? However, in the next second, he felt a terrifying gravity pressing down on him. Yu Dafeng appeared directly in front of him and slashed at him with a short knife. No, this is not Yu Dafeng. Just as Yu Jing was about to escape, something that shocked him happened. He found that his soul seemed to be controlled and he couldn't move. In a flash, Yu Jing's soul immediately begged for mercy. "Brother, I surrender, please spare my life." Puff. As the saying went, there was no turning back. Han Fei thought to himself, this Dao-seeking state demon seems to be a bit cowardly. Immediately, he changed from slashing to stabbing. Chilla. Han Fei pulled out the blood-drinking knife that had just been stabbed in. At that moment, Yu Jing's blood spurted out, and Han Fei punched Yu Jing in the abdomen. EW. Another mouthful of blood spurted out. Yu Jing was dumbfounded. Is this still Yu Dafeng? Is Yu Dafeng so strong? He can make me vomit blood with a casual punch. Han Fei curled his lips. If he had a spy, he would definitely be able to grasp first-hand information. For example, where were the caves of the strong? This way, he could save a lot of trouble. Han Fei bared his teeth and pretended to be hoarse and gloomy. "I can let go of your soul, but you have to cooperate with me. Otherwise, I'll break all the bones in your body and swallow your vitality." Gulp. Yu Jing shivered. There was only one thought in his mind, Yu Dafeng had been possessed. Moreover, the person who had taken over his body was very strong, and he was definitely not a match for him. When there was only one void line left, he said hoarsely, "Okay, you can speak now." Yu Jing shivered all over and quickly moved his feet. But for some reason, he felt that something was wrong. It was as if he was still in the clutches of the devil. Han Fei sneered. "No need. I've done something to your soul. So long as you cooperate with me obediently, I'll naturally protect you from death. But, if you have other thoughts in your heart, I can corrode your divine soul and destroy your body within 7 steps. Yu Jing shuddered and hurriedly said in fear, Yu Jing will follow Sir's lead. Sir's will is Yu Jing's will. As long as Sir gives the order, Yu Jing will take the lead. Ha ha ha. Han Fei sneered. You're a smart boy. Don't worry, I've been sleeping for 10,000 years. When I wake up, it's time for me to use people. As long as you're obedient, I won't treat you badly. In the future, I will grant you eternal life. The more the old turtle listened to Han Fei's bragging, the more he felt something was wrong. Wasn't this his own line? The old turtle felt his blood freeze. When he walked on the devil path, he experienced ups and downs in his turtle life. However, this kid was fucking born to be a demon. Han Fei asked leisurely, you should know what I'm looking for. Yu Jing was shocked. Although deep in his heart, he also guessed that Han Fei was bragging, he couldn't refute him now. Yu Jing hurriedly said, are you looking for spiritual spring water and divine weapons? Yu Jing pondered. Since Han Fei possessed Yu Dafeng, it was probably because his own conditions were limited. What did Yu Dafeng have? He was a poor loser, the kind that lacked everything. This fully showed that Han Fei's pursuit should not be too high. Smack! Han Fei slapped Yu Jing away. Can mere spiritual spring water and divine weapons satisfy me? What I want is the entire Ice God Gorge. Yu Jing was dumbfounded. You have a big fist. Keep bragging. Damn it, if you can rob the entire Ice God Gorge. What else do you need me for? Han Fei said leisurely, you, go rob the 6 sea spirits nearby first. You're only allowed to rob, but you're not allowed to kill. At that time, Yu Jing's face turned green. Are you kidding me? You want to rob them but you don't allow me to kill them? Won't I be exposed? Then how can I survive in the Ice God Gorge in the future? Han Fei casually set up a ceiling array and smirked. Take this as a token of your loyalty. Don't worry, within 3 days, I can rob the entire Ice God Gorge. At that time, the infinite ocean will be my way back. How could I waste my time on such a small place? Yu Jing's heart tightened. 3 days? Didn't that mean that 3 days later might also be the day of his death? Of course, Han Fei knew what Yu Jing was thinking and couldn't help sneering. Humph, you're just a Tao-seeking state cultivator. I don't care about you. I've just recovered and need a servant. It depends on your performance in the next few days. Gulp. Yes, master. Yu Jing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What could he do? He didn't believe Han Fei at all. He could only take advantage of these 3 days to create the conditions for himself to escape. However, how could he create the conditions? The first thing was to obey the order. Yu Jing trembled all over because he found that Han Fei's cold eyes seemed to be aiming at his head. Yu Jing hurriedly said, Master, this is just a fire spring. Do you need to do it yourself? Yu Jing will rob it for you. After a moment. In a cave. A lobster was surprised. You are, Master Yu Jing. Hey, Master Yu Jing, what are you doing? When the lobster saw Yu Jing's large hands snatching all of his resources, he panicked and said, Lord Yu Jing, these are all things this lowly one prepared to offer to you. Please be magnanimous and spare this lowly one's life. Yu Jing looked complicated. He really wanted to kill this guy. However, he had to let this guy see it. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to prove his loyalty. Yu Jing could only snort. I'm robbing you because I think highly of you. These resources are all for my urgent use. I will return them to you in the future. Then, not long after. An octopus shouted angrily, Yu Jing, I'm Long Zhang's junior. How dare you rob me? Bam! The giant octopus was slapped into the mud pit with a single slap. Yu Jing didn't want to talk nonsense. I can't even save my own life. I don't care who you are. 1, 2. When Yu Jing robbed the fifth person, it was a blood sea cucumber, which was almost killed by Yu Jing. Yu Jing snorted coldly. Don't be so shameless. I'm robbing you because I think highly of you. However, the void trembled, and Han Fei appeared in front of him. Yu Jing's heart tightened, only to see Han Fei poke a hole in the bloody sea cucumber with one finger and kill it. Han Fei clicked his tongue and said, "This thing tastes good. You should keep it." "Oh, you just sent a message to it. What's wrong? Do you think I can't detect it?" Yu Jing's body immediately went limp and he burst into tears. "Damn it. I shouldn't have played these tricks in front of you, Master. Master, please give me another chance. If I offend you again, Master, kill me." At that moment, the Tao-seeking great demon knelt down to Han Fei with a plop. Han Fei was stunned. How can this be? Doesn't this guy need to seek his Tao anymore? To be honest, this meal had taken away at least half of this fellow's Tao. Han Fei was stunned for a while before he said faintly, "Humph. If you do this again, I'll kill you." Yu Jing almost burst into tears of gratitude and hurriedly said, "Thank you for sparing me, Master." Han Fei gently waved his hand. "Have you looted everything here? Is there any important place that hasn't been looted? If I find it myself, then..." Humph. Yu Jing's heart skipped a beat and he knew that he couldn't be muddle-headed anymore. Yu Jing said, "Master, the Land of Fire is actually only suitable for revision. However, because it's too close to the ice and snow city wall, only 200,000 kilometers away. Therefore, there are often strong human masters spying on it. Therefore, most strong masters won't really build their mansions here. Most of the sea spirit realm creatures cultivate here, and there are often 2 or 3 Tao-seeking state powerhouses guarding it. Now that the war has started, there is basically no place to loot in the Land of Fire. I'm afraid." Han Fei, Yu Jing said cautiously, "If you really want to loot, I'm afraid you have to go to the Ice Mountain City or the Ice God Gorge." Han Fei narrowed his eyes. "Where is the Ice Mountain City? But since it's called a city, it should be of a higher level than the Ice God Gorge, right? It's better to loot a city first." Han Fei asked, "How many venerables are there in the Ice God Gorge now?" Han Fei's eyes were full of fierceness. Yu Jing's heart skipped a beat. Why didn't he ask about the Ice Mountain City? However, fearing that Han Fei would find something wrong again, he immediately said, "Compared with the Sea of Fire and the Dark War Port, the Ice God Gorge is not a strategic place. Therefore, the 3 venerables are always stationed here. I know that now the 3 venerables are not here, and only a few peak-level Tao-seeking powerhouses are guarding it. The forces of the Ice Mountain City should be even weaker now, and most of the strong masters have gone to battle." Han Fei secretly smiled. "That's good." But on the surface, he looked at Yu Jing with a faint smile. "Then you have to confirm it clearly. Even if the venerables are here, I can still easily kill you. If something unexpected happens, don't say that I didn't give you a chance."